How dare you say that we are not interested in families in the Black community?
What Black community? It's a Black environment with Black women and Black children in it.
Couple's teenage children were home at the. We're back with breaking news out of Virginia, where just this morning, police say former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax shot and killed his wife before fatally shooting himself in their home. Police say the couple's teenage children were home at the time of the incident, and their son called 911. Let's bring in MS Now's Ariel Hickson with the very latest. Ariel, what are we learning about how this unfolded?
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Once more into the breach as we all step boldly forward to the madness. We spent a lot of time this last 2 or 3 days talking about this young lady who was killed by her lover, Miss Ashley Janae. At least that was her online handle, Ashley Janae. That's what we all know her by. And yesterday, while I was discussing this incident, I actually pulled up, because, you know, I'm petty like that. I pulled up the DV rates of Black America, because, you know, there is this myth that was being thrown around that, you know, you get you a white man and he's going to revert back to factory settings on you one day. And oh my God, it's all over, you know, it's curtains, right? And I pulled up the DV homicide rates in particular. I pulled up DV rates across the board so I can compare Black and white. And I then focused a little bit deeper. I went deeper. I went way under the surface, and we got into not only just DV across the board, but in particular, homicide rates. Homicide rates between intimate partners, and we broke them down into Black and white columns, right? Black men typically are the aggressors here. And so we are comparing that to white men, while we also compared Black women as the aggressors in domestic homicide. And to be totally blunt, Black women be putting numbers up on the board, all right? Black women are the Scottie Pippen to Black men in the domestic violence category, all right? And the National Body-Ball Association, Black women are Scottie Pippen. There's no other way to put it. We're Jordan and Scotty. We're Shaq and Kobe up here. You guys remember that one playoffs? It was like, I don't know, 2002 or something like that, 2003-ish, when Shaq and Kobe they were on the Lakers together. And Kobe threw like this crazy, like off the backboard alley-oop pass to Shaquille O'Neal, and it damn near like stopped the world for a minute. That was Black women and the National Body-Ball Association. All right, we're Shaq and Kobe. We're like Stockton and Malone. There's no separating the two. And just as we finished that discussion, apparently as we were having that discussion, some nigga went Michael Jordan on his wife.
Well, Anna, police say that 47-year-old Virginia former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and his wife were found dead just this morning in their Annandale home.
How dare you say that we are not interested in families in the Black community?
Fairfax reportedly shot his wife multiple times in the basement of their home and then died by suicide in their primary bedroom that Wednesday night. Now, officials say, as we noted earlier, that both of their teenage children were in their home at the time of the shooting, and that their son reportedly called 911. Now, police say that they are calling this a murder-suicide that appears to be related to a dispute over the divorce. Take a listen.
Now, you know, I can relate in a tangential way. Like, I can't relate to that actual thing, but I can relate loosely to the concept. And I tell you what, I really wanted that. There was a time in my life when I was on the edge of homicidal intention. I was walking the line, and it was a razor thin line, like a slight gust of wind, and I would have ruined 4 or 5 lives in that day. I was going to take a lot of money. I was going to burn the whole world down that day, you know? But you know what paused me? The idea that I actually love my kids, and no matter how much I want to hurt you for hurting me, I don't actually want to hurt my kids by hurting you. And so that actually like stayed my hand. You know, that is what ultimately saved multiple lives once upon a time in a land once forgotten, you know, way back when. And because I didn't want to hurt my kids by hurting you, I avoided this debacle that he just put his kids through. This is horrible shit right here. I really could not imagine doing this to my kids. Like, fuck that bitch. I don't give a shit what happens to her. Let her rot. But damn, now my kid's gonna be looking at me like, why would you do this? Why? And you really have no good answer. What are you gonna tell your son? You know, fuck your mom? Like, he's not trying to hear that shit.
Shooting, and that their son reportedly called 911. Now, police say that they are calling this a murder-suicide that appears to be related to a dispute over the divorce. Take a listen.
I don't think it's a secret that there's been a divorce proceedings that have been ongoing. From what I understand in this early stage, former Lieutenant Governor Fairfax was recently served some paperwork associated with an upcoming court proceeding that apparently led to this incident last night.
Now, Fairfax and his wife were living together.
Yeah, Rational B. Hood is nurturing and empathetic, all right? But only to my children, because those are mine. That's my flesh and my flesh, blood of my blood. I can develop a seething hatred for just about anybody else in this world. But you know, the kids, you know what? Just because the kids are here, we're gonna let this one go. You know, I have that ability to pull it back because I love my children. I might hate everybody else in this world, but you know, I'll give you a pass because my kids I don't want to see my kids hurt.
Together at the time of this dispute, but were separated. And he was accused of sexual assault by two women in 2019. He ignored bipartisan calls to resign, serving out the rest of his term. Just some background there. He also served.
What's up with all these Democrats being accused of being all gropey? What's up with the Democrats? Why are they gropey?
As a 41st Lieutenant Governor of Virginia from 2018 to 2022. Now, there is a statement that has just been released from Virginia Speaker Don Scott. He says, in response to the deeply disturbing reports, he says that he is heartbroken by the deeply disturbing reports emerging this morning, and that this is a, quote, unspeakable tragedy, and that their hearts are with the family, especially the children and loved ones whose lives here have been forever changed by this devastating loss. Anna?
All right, folks, good morning. I'm here to confirm the identity of our shooter in this murder-suicide that happened several hours ago as former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. Former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax shot and killed his wife inside of their home and then shot and killed himself. I think you have the rest of the details that Captain Cosgriff gave earlier this morning, so I'm just going to pause right here and answer any of your questions to the best of my ability right now. I can just tell you, and then I'll go to Drew first, that this has been an ongoing domestic dispute surrounding what seems to be a complicated or messy divorce. So, Drew.
And Chief, that was going to be my question. Can you elaborate on what the investigation has revealed about the status of their marriage? Of course, the kids are what everybody's thinking about, I think, too, in this as well.
So far, what we know is probably what you all know, and I don't think it's a secret that there's been a divorce proceedings that have been ongoing. From what I understand in this early stage, former Lieutenant Governor Fairfax was recently served some paperwork associated with an upcoming court proceeding that apparently led to this incident last night. Both of their children, teenagers, the boys older than the girl, were in the house when it happened. So that's horrible news for the family. Certainly a traumatic event for those children to live through. But we know that it all kind of culminated last night when Justin Fairfax shot several times and killed his wife, ran to a different part of the home, and then killed himself with the same firearm.
I know you just got on scene, but from your briefing, what do you know about the scene inside? What is?
So it seems like, and I know I'm competing with some school buses here. It seems like the murder took place in the basement. It's described to me as a finished unfinished basement in the home. At some point after Justin shot and killed his wife, he runs upstairs in the home and into the primary bedroom, apparently, and shoots and kills himself.
Have you had any previous domestic calls to this location?
So we checked.
Now, shout out to Harambe in the chat with the 199 super chat. I'm surprised you went easy on the divester. Well, you know, like I said, I'm not going to dance on someone's grave, you know. Plus, her dating a white guy doesn't make her automatically like some bitter divester chick. I want to save my my fire for really, really good targets. You know, I don't think she was the best target. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do, guys, because we're going to do things a little bit different today. I got one other video clip that I'm going to run for you guys, and then I'm going to drop the link because I might have to take this show on the road a little bit. I gotta run a slight errand here, but I'm going to drop the link very early, and we're going to open up the floor soon, especially after this next video clip. I imagine there's going to be some commentary you guys want to add.
On that, the question is, have we had any previous domestic service or calls for service to this location? In January of this year, Mr. Fairfax calls the police and alleges that his wife assaulted him. We responded to that scene. There are several cameras set up inside the house. Apparently, Mrs. Fairfax, at some point during these divorce proceedings, set up a lot of cameras inside the home. We reviewed those cameras, and we corroborated that the alleged assault never occurred. So there was no arrest made. There was a report written, but the allegation that Mr. Fairfax made in January that Mrs. Fairfax assaulted him was proven to be untrue.
Does the nature of who's involved here, like how does that play into it?
Well, certainly this is a high-profile family. At one point in time, I think it's fair to say that Justin Fairfax, before he was lieutenant governor, while he served as lieutenant governor, and even afterwards, was a rising star politically, not just in Northern Virginia, but in Virginia. So it's high profile in nature. It's tragic in nature. Certainly a fall from grace for a relatively high profile family that seemingly had a lot of things going in their favor. So tragic for the children to lose both parents. Extra tragic for them to actually be in the home when it occurred. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and you know, our victim services division, like they always do, is leaning into the family, the surviving relatives, the children in particular, and we'll do everything we can for them.
What do we know about the gun?
Then I'll get.
Wife obviously being shot first, and afterwards, the basement upstairs. Did you get all of that from the cameras inside the house today, or how were you able to do that?
So our detectives have gathered that. Certainly, there's enough cameras inside the home that we're able to corroborate some of that. But the one of the children was the 911 caller just after midnight. So he described some things to us as well that we've since corroborated. And I think I heard one question about what do we know about the gun? I don't know anything about the gun yet. The same gun that Mr. Fairfax used to kill his wife seems to be the same gun that he used to kill himself.
Any other weapons in the house?
I don't know. Well, we're going to be here for a while. Obviously, we have a search warrant we need to execute to recover evidence, and certainly included in that evidence is the primary firearm that was used and any other firearms. I don't know that they do or don't exist.
I think piggybacking off that question, the cameras were still. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The cameras were still there and rolling and operational, and that's.
I believe they were. I believe they were.
So he had set up the cameras, and well, we don't know who set up the cameras. She set up the cameras in the house.
Yes.
Just to clarify, and but
Yeah.
he alleged that she assaulted him.
So what we know, I'm going back to January now. What we know is that Mrs. Fairfax, at some point in time, they lived together while they were separated in separate bedrooms. At some point in time, we know Mrs. Fairfax installed several cameras inside the home. And we know that because when Mr. Fairfax called us to their home back in January and alleged that his wife assaulted him in the home, we were able to go to those cameras and determine that never occurred. So that's the only time that the Fairfax County Police Department has ever been at the Fairfax home.
So shout out to True Hype with the foul ball. He says that lieutenant governor was the politician that introduced red flag laws in VA, which is very ironic. And this just serves as another example. Yeah, these politicians can't be trusted with your rights. And there's this other thing too about Democrats, especially. There's a little bit of mental illness that is a lot of mentally ill people tend to propagate the political left here. And so that story is playing out right now. It's still under investigation. I wanted to come back to that maybe later on, but I want to share something else with you, and I'm going to drop the link while this is playing.
Eventful month of my ex is pressing charges against me for giving him the most eventful month of his life in the month of December. So I figured I'd go ahead and share with you the complete list of 30 things that I did. On day 1, I superglued his gas tank shut. On day 2, I wrote a letter to his mother about a secret child that he's been hiding for 5 years. I made that whole thing up, but my letter was very emotional and believable. On day 3, I sent flowers to his job with a note from his sponsor, implying that he relapsed over the weekend, but that it's okay. On day 4, I had random people show up at his door at all times of the night so that he was sleep deprived and actually looked like an addict at work the next day. On day 5, I made a Tinder profile for him as a down low man who loves aggressive men and asked that they text him. And I said that if he responds negatively, it just means that his girlfriend is nearby, and that they should try again later and also send pics of their junk. On day 6, I wrote a letter to the bank that he was financing his car through, pretending to be him, and I voluntarily surrendered his vehicle. They did, in fact, repossess his car. On day 7, I wrote a letter to his landlord from a concerned neighbor about his addiction and strangers showing up at his door at all times of night, and I said that I was concerned he may be dealing. I weaponized SEO on day 8, and I made a wedding registry so any woman looking to date him will think that he's an engaged cheater. On day 9, I convinced him he has a stalker. On day 10, I mailed him an official letter notifying him that he is being investigated for drug smuggling. On day 11, I mailed him a letter from the Department of Public Health saying he is a person of contact for an antibiotic-resistant strain of super gonorrhea. On day 12, I mailed a missed appointment postcard from a fake erectile dysfunction clinic to his job. On day 13, I entered his home, injected his mattress with milk, painted sugar water along the baseboards to attract ants, and I put beef bouillon cubes and Jolly Ranchers in his shower head. On day 14, I signed him up for Scientology courses. On day 15, I sent him a fake voodoo doll of him with a needle through the crotch because I knew at this point he was probably thinking he was cursed. On day 16, I pretended to be his wife and I called to get his utilities shut off. On day 17, I called his grandma pretending to be a nursing home, informing her that the application he submitted for her has been approved. On day 18, I sent him a fake obituary, claiming to have found it on his best friend's computer, warning him that he may be in danger. On day 19, I called his office front desk and left a voicemail saying he got the job he applied for, stating that we know he was trying to get a new one quickly and that he can start Monday. On day 20, I messaged his family and friends with fake documentation of him donating to radical groups. On day 21, I created a profile for him on a social media platform and wrote a detailed confessional about how he's sexually attracted to his mother and that has been the cause of his addiction this whole time. On day 22, I called a close family member of his pretending to be a life insurance company, notifying them that he tried to take out several policies on them. On day 23, I called and offered him the job of his dreams. The morning he was supposed to start, I rescinded the fake offer and told him he needs to talk to the people in his close circles because they did not have good things to say about him. On day 24, I emailed his landlord giving a 30-day notice that he's moving out. On day 25, I reported him deceased to his bank to get his accounts frozen. On day 26, I called his mother's church and informed them that he had made me get an abortion, and it was a very emotional phone call. I talked about how I can't live with myself. On day 27, I went on a podcast and painted him as a deadbeat father to the child that I lied about him having to his mother. On day 28, I put up flyers in his neighborhood warning neighbors that he is a peeping Tom. On day 29, I sent him an anonymous email informing him that someone may be out to get him and that the last 28 days have in fact been calculated. And on day 30, which was New Year's Eve, I called to have a mental health wellness check done on him and he was committed. I saw some of you pointing out that December has 31 days and not 30 days. I did take the first day of December to plan all of this out before I started taking action. My ex is pressing charges against me for giving him the
John, thank you for pulling up. You are right on time, John. I dropped the link in there for you. If you want to come up, please feel free. I want to kind of extend a little bit of the discussion you were attempting to have last night, out in the wild. And what do you think about this this video I just put up on the screen? So I'm gonna switch my setup. I will be right back. Let me pull True High up on the screen for a second. Give me 1 second. I got to switch my setup, and we're gonna take this on the road. John, please feel free to hit the link. I'll be right back, guys.
Well, dang. Hi. I mean, I guess I'll say something. Like I was listening to you last night, John, and it's pretty interesting the point to where you made mention of something, and then the one dude went crazy, and then the simp god dude, they went back and forth, and he kept on saying Detroit. I have no clue what that means.
Hold on. Start over. What were you saying about the simp god and went back and forth? I lost you for a second.
They went back and forth with that one cat that was up there with the simp god, because he was going at y'all, and then like he I guess he had an issue with the simp god, and then like they went into like, oh, let's both throw our lives away, and invite each other to each other's houses.
You know what that remind me of, bro? I don't know if you ever seen this. There's a clip going around of Hassan Campbell. You know the guy, African Bambaataa. There's a clip with a Hassan Campbell, and he always internet beefing with somebody. And there's this one clip where he was like, you know what? That's it. Let's bang out. You come around here, we could bang out in front of the police. You know what? That's it. Let's both die together. I'm like, bro, that was that moment. That was literally that moment, bro. They had exactly that moment. It was crazy.
I was thinking the Boondock scene. The nigga moment, the actual definition nigga moment scene. I think it was like from the first episode.
It really was that.
And I was like, yo, this is why motherfuckers be dying, man. And it'd be crazy. Like the two people that enter into mutual combat will not die, but several people around them will. That's crazy. I don't know, man. Like that was so wild to me, man. It's just like I was watching like a National Geographic like wildlife preserve kind of thing, and it was just happening so naturally. To which I've seen stuff like that a whole lot. Getting your shoes stepped on could be a life-changing event, if you will.
Well, I mean, and it was never supposed to be. That's the thing, too. It's not supposed to be a life-changing event, but that's how it is. Like, what started that whole exchange was when the simp god dude came up and tried to, hold black men accountable and say that, you don't be protecting women. You only protect the women you know. Like, he literally tried to make that a point of contention. Like, we're supposed to crash out and throw our lives away for random women that he don't even know. Meanwhile, 5-10 minutes later, he wants to throw his life away for nothing. But we're supposed to crash out for random women and strangers, right? And so he starts talking about, what protecting women and all this, and it goes into this whole thing about black men. Come to find out, though, everybody was basically saying that, you do for yours. You know what I mean? Like, my whole thing was membership has privileges. You know what I'm saying? I'm not crashing out for some rando. If you're under my wing, hell, just because not even just because we having sex. That's a whole other thing. Just because I stuck my wee wee in your cooter doesn't mean I owe you my blood. You know what I'm saying? You gave me that was a fair exchange. I don't buy that just because we sleeping together.
But it's really funny. Like, okay, I remember now. The cat made actually a good point about and then he questioned the simp guy dude, saying that, hey, when's the last when and who was the last person that random woman that you protected? And then the dude started talking to his wife.
And that's when everybody jumped on him, because that was all that we were saying, bro. Niggas are not crashing out for these random women. And then here's the other side of it. And this kind of, I wanted to bring this up, but it was too crowded. But there is no reward for being a hero. That's really the problem here. It's one thing if we lived in a nice high trust society where doing the right thing didn't come at a lethal price, but this is what John Galt was trying to point out to you niggas. Like, it's one thing, and maybe like in white America, it's slightly easier to get away with this because there's less of a homicidal intent in a lot of these situations in white America. But with black America, you might have to kill that nigga because he might try to kill you for intervening.
Well,
And
John,
like once you run the numbers and do the calculations, it's just safer to let her get her ass whipped.
John got stepped on or whatever, but he made a point in that, right, during that whole exchange. And he said, oh, I'm going to go, try to save her. And she going to be with the dude anyway.
Which is another thing. I've seen that shit so many times. Like, you know what? And I was trying to tell this little anecdote, but it never got to come out yesterday. Like I was saying, I put myself in the line for a relative before, right? Um, we was in the projects or whatever. I remember I'm hearing like this commotion outside or whatever. And I'm only on the second floor, so you can hear everything. And so I go look out the window and I see my little cousin. It's a girl, a much younger cousin too. And it's probably like a 12, 15-year gap between the two of us. And so she's got her younger baby daddy, again, much younger than me, right? But like he whipping her out there. I'm saying? He whipping her out. And I come outside and I swear to God, I end that shit with my fucking presence, bro. Just being there, like, bro, come on, you got that, bro. Stop. I didn't have to get aggressive. I didn't have to get tough because like I was just put it to, I was a known character out there. You know what I'm saying? Like you niggas know me. And so when I came out there, all I had to do was just be like, bro, stop. And it didn't go no further than that. It didn't get aggressive. It didn't get crazy. Everybody respected the order and he went on about his life. And she went back to that nigga and gave him some ass the next day anyway. Like, why would I die for a nigga that you want to fuck after he beat your ass? Like, I'm not trying to go through all of that shit. But niggas like SimGod, they expect you to put your life on the line, not only for your blood and your relatives, but for random black women who will go back to whatever disrespectful behavior that got them in this mess in the first place. And I'm just not trying to go for that, bro.
Well, part of me don't believe them cats anyway. Because, I'm like, where are your actions? You just on the internet talking right now. Like, where are your actions? Like, who knows you that said this, that put their stamp on you or whatever, right? And no, I can possibly trust this or whatever, but I just know human nature, psychology and all that. There's survival instinct, and like we ain't out here, radical empathists, having suicidal empathy. That don't exist in that community. You ain't gonna tell me that exists in that community. I done seen it too much times to prove otherwise. You know what I'm saying?
That's funny. I saw a video. It was a TMZ video a few weeks ago, and they were debating whether or not black people are more forgiving than white people. And I just thought that was such a funny posture to take. I never actually watched the full clip. It's somewhere saved in my bookmarks, but I never actually watched the full clip because I'm like, this is such a ridiculous frame of work, like frame of mind. Because like, where's the evidence at? First of all, everybody makes these arguments on something like anecdotal or subjective, but like, is there any real evidence to back that up? Because I would argue Black America is probably the least empathetic place to be. You're not going to get a soft landing in a lot of cases in Black America, bro.
But I think it depends, right? Like case by case wise. You know what I'm saying? Like Orange Man, for example, right? Ain't nobody gonna tell the masses that he's a good dude now because they were told to hate him. But like I saw people like defending cause. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, and shout out to Deborah Leonelli. It has been a while, and Deborah, you are one of the OG conservative fan club members, and so I know we can fall out over this and that issue, but I appreciate the well wishing nonetheless. I never mean you any harm or any ill will. We can disagree over that one particular subject, and I don't think you're a bad person at all for believing what you believe. Let's agree to disagree and move on forward with peace and harmony. Shout out to Deborah Leonelli. She says, "Hey, Hoodie, I just wanted to stop by, say hi. I miss the old days. But you know how sensitive I get about that one issue. I hope you're well. I, too, get sensitive about that one issue. And, you know, apparently the whole world is sensitive about that one issue right now. It's ironic how that thing blew up, but I'm glad you're still alive and well. Hope all's been going well for you, Deborah. Mr. Enigma, I think I just brought you up on the panel. What's going on, bro?
What up, man? I just joined a little bit ago, but I had to jump in after your story about your little cousin because my older brother was caught in a similar situation. Ironically, and for him was he.
Whoa, bro, you in the wind tunnel right now.
Yeah, I was waiting here. But hold on. But the thing was with him was he had a wife and 4 daughters when he intervened with my cousin's situation, right? And it just so happened that the dude that was beating on my cousin had a warrant out for him. So he escaped that, but that was his last straw as well. He's like, I can't keep doing this, you know, over dude that you choose to go back to, you know. And my question always was, you know, like black men need to like protect every random woman. Like, but what about my daughters though, right? Like I'm risking my life for a rando, but then like something happens to me, now my daughters are vulnerable. You know what? Why isn't that a part of their rate when they calculate?
You know, it's so ironic. You know, it's so ironic. In the long story, and in the big picture of it all, bro, I don't even talk to that cousin no more. Like literally, I just don't. And it has nothing to do with that incident, but something else happened in life to make me realize that I thought blood was thicker than vaginas. Apparently, vagina is thicker than blood. And I realized, like, damn, just because we blood doesn't mean you got my back. But I had your back just because we blood. That's some crazy shit. So I had to stop talking to this. Like, this is what you really come to find out. Like, your sacrifice goes, like, unappreciated and unloved in the long run. They want you to be an endless crash out dummy, and they just get to go like a butterfly from flower to flower, and you just have to be a crash out dummy. And it's a horrible situation in the grand scheme of it all. But like, why throw your life away for creatures who care nothing of you? And it's a one-sided loyalty, which is basically like a type of servitude, you know?
Yeah, but they want you to react like or still operate like the old order of doing things is still in place. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a time where, you know, women actually understood that, hey, if they told their dad or their brother or their cousin or, you know, whichever male that was close to them in their family something that happened to them, they know that the dude was going to crash out. So sometimes they would even keep the information to themselves because they didn't want, you know what I'm saying, all the third order effects, you know what I'm saying, to come down the line. That is not the case.
Right,
all the drama.
That is a woman, right? I'm gonna kick it to you 1 second, ADS. Welcome up to the show. That is actually how women protect men, right? By not walking me into the line of fire, by not putting me up on a crash dummy mission, right? Because as a man, it is very easy for me to get in that mode of who did what. And now I'm an attack dog, right? Because I'm operating on loyalty and like this is what I'm supposed to do as a man. And women will weaponize that shit and then go right along with their lives as if nothing happened. Now you're in jail, somebody's dead or injured or whatever, and it's just like, tee hee, I'm just a girl. Well, Lord ADS, welcome to the show, bro.
What up, Hood Servant? What up, panel?
Chilling.
Yeah, man.
What thoughts you got?
I mean, it's crazy, right? It's insane, man. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right, man, about that going unappreciated because it used to be exceptional when the man was being noble like that, right? When he was standing up for the woman and his nobility, for her honor. Nowadays, it's just expected. So Black women tend to like to weaponize that, right? Against other women do it in general, but especially Black women do that, man, a lot. You know, but they'll weaponize the male figures in her life who will protect her against other men, right? Even though she knows she's done her part in this too, she'll never admit her part, but she'll just tell everything that he did. And then secondly, right, what's going on with all these dudes crashing out on Black women? I mean, wow, man, it's crazy, right? You got the guy over there in Africa, and then you got the guy who's got prominence, you know what I'm saying? Got a career ahead of him, you know what I'm saying? Going through
You know, for a
And
minute, I thought that was a white woman. I had to look closer. Like, no, that's just a really light skinned black chick. Like, she's got really, really like fair skin. So she's like very, at a glance, she kind of looks like a white woman. That's what made the story look interesting. I'm like, damn, the other day a white guy kills his black spouse. Now today a black guy kills his white spouse. But then I look closer, like, nah, she's just extremely like heavily mixed, you know. But that one almost got me. But that I think she would classify as black. She probably identifies as black, you know.
facts, but man, that's just wild, man. You know, over the last couple of days, how folks been crashing out, almost like on cue, right? Manchurian Candidate type of subliminal programming. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the white guy messes up, and then all of a sudden the black guy's got to do it too. I'm not sure, man. Hey, maybe we need to start filtering what we watch on TV, man, and in the media, bro.
Well,
We might need a filter of some sort there.
well, that particular dude had a few screws loose anyway. I remember like some stories getting done on him, and like him like saying certain stuff and doing certain things or whatever when he was in the legislature, and like especially during the time of the bug, right? The great bug. Yeah, like definitely authoritative type. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, ain't nothing wrong being authoritative. Somebody got to tell somebody what to do.
No, I'm saying like authoritarian though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we're gonna lock you down. If you don't put this thing in your body that you don't want to put in your body, you know what I'm saying? You can't take part in society, that kind of stuff.
That was being preached across the government, brother. I mean, I'm gonna give him some grace for that. But what's his name again? And what else has he said? What's his name?
Are you talking about the lieutenant governor guys in Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally. Well, I didn't even catch his name. I just kind of jumped on the story real quick. I never even heard of his name until recently.
Let me get his name and see what else he's been talking about.
Yeah, and I'm in my car now. I can't look things up as easily
Fairfax.
right now.
Yeah. Justin Fairfax.
Fairfax, Virginia. That's ironic.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? What has he said? Political party. Let's start with that. See if he's a blue or red. Oh yeah, he's an ass.
Oh, he's blue. He's blue.
He's an ass. He's an ass. Okay, so that's done. So now let's go to things he has said, right?
Now here's a question, right? Here's a question. How do you vet against something like this, right? Because see, like the girl, Ashley Janae, everybody's saying like, oh well, you're supposed to vet better. You're supposed to, read the signs or whatever. And I mean, to a certain degree, how do you always know? Like, you can't always know every little thing, right? And so, like this guy, they've been married, they have kids together. Do you really think that like 17, 20, whatever years ago when they got together, she could predict 30 something? She could predict all the way in the future that one day she would piss this guy off enough to push him to this point? Like, how do you really know? There's just no vetting for every eventual outcome.
Well, you also don't know how people are going to react. And then, like, if there is ongoing stuff going on, like she's trying to, like, provoke him for, like, say if a woman, your wife, was provoking you for years and then hits you with some papers and then takes, like, the little bit of stuff to come. Because, I mean, like, hey, he could have been in debt up to his eyeballs, you know what I'm saying, for stuff that she wanted. And then she's like, I'm going to bounce. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, here we go.
I want to compare these two incidents, right? Look, so you got the Ashley Janae. Nobody knows what happened to make, assuming he is guilty, because it looks like that. We all assume that in these types of situations, right? Assuming he is guilty, we all know what led up to it, right? And now the same thing in Fairfax, Virginia. I mean, with this guy, Fairfax guy, we don't really know just how awful, just how tense the bickering and the arguments got between them to push them to that point. Because generally there's a buildup before there's an explosion, right? It's like a volcano. Volcanoes don't just erupt because it rained one day. Like, it takes a lot of pressure for that volcano to finally blow. And right before I put the link in the chat, I played that video of that girl who went on like a 20-day run of terrorism against her boyfriend. And the kinds of things that she did to that man are essentially invisible.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
nobody.
I think I got what's going on here. Right? So remember, back when Ralph Northam, back in 2019, was under those scandals, remember all of a sudden, saying Fairfax is caught two allegations from the Me Too people, right? So I guess Northam or somebody called in and said, hey, if I'm going, he got to go too. So he was kicked out of office because of that, even though he claimed his innocence the whole time, right? So after that, it's like now, I like you said, Hood, it could be an accumulation of his life falling apart, and then her in his ear, then the divorce thing, all that stuff just adding up on him, man. He checked out, checked completely out.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Like, we don't really know what the buildup is because in these scenarios, I promise you, ass whippings don't fall from the sky, neither do homicides. Something happened.
And then
It,
Hood,
it
Hood,
all it, it
Hood.
all comes with respect, man. When your girl is disrespectful, you know what I'm saying? Especially when you start seeing that the disrespect keep creeping in, that's where all this other stuff comes into play. And also, you got to understand how she manages her own anxiety. You know what I mean? Like how big is your voice in her head compared to the voices in her head? You know,
Oh
that's what I
God.
learned.
Oh God, man. Yeah, like, oh man, that's too much at times, man. But
Exactly.
man,
Because all that is anxiety. The chick that went on that 20-day run to ruin dude, that's all anxiety. Most of the issues that we have with these women stems from anxiety, right? The BBLs, the all the crazy stuff they do, man, all this talking, that's just their anxiety talking. As long as you're louder than her anxiety, you're in good for the most part. I'm not gonna be absolute, but you know, 9 times out of 10, you're in a good space if you're louder than her own anxiety.
well, if she's in a space where she's willing to listen to you, because like there's women online that always be telling these other women online like, oh, don't ever listen to a man and all this, and they rather put that above their relationship supposedly that they want.
Right, and that's why you gotta be louder than her anxiety, because that's their anxiety influencing her anxiety, which is a weird connection that they have. They that's like a trauma bond kind of thing, but it's based on anxiety. You know what I'm saying? That helps convince each other, but you gotta be louder than all that, and you gotta be respectful, man. She gotta look at you for what you actually are. You know, like Ashley Janae girl, she was hyperbolic in her rhetoric. Like every day, black men do something to embarrass us. That's anxiety right there. Like that's a red flag for a guy who's trying to date her. Like this,
Eighty
like
percent
when
of all 80% of all human beings' thoughts are negative. 95 are repetitive, right? So if you keep playing to those negative thoughts and it's a repetitive thing at 95%, of course those things are going to overwhelm you in your mind because you're going to see everything in the world as something, saying potentially that can violate you or hurt you or do something to you, right? In reality, almost I would say 99% of what you think or feel is in your head. You know what I'm saying? It's just not nothing external. It's just all internal to what they kind of feel. And we all know that women can get caught up in their feelings, but that's beside the point, right? In this circumstance, the situation, it's as a man, you gotta know when to get the hell up out of there. And Cool in the Gang saying, what's that song they used to sing? It's too hot, baby. Got to run for shelter, got to run for shade. Got to get the hell up out of there. You can't be, if all this is going on and you in the same house as that woman, you know what I'm saying? There's probably going to come to a point where something going to pop off, right? From one way or another. Either she going to disrespect you, you know what I'm saying? Or you just going to feel a certain way or something else is going to happen, especially if y'all divorcing each other. This brother should have bailed a long time ago about that house, man, and found something else to do. Found a little apartment, some place to live at until he could figure things out, right? But instead, he stayed in the home even during the divorce, proceedings and all this stuff. And then you got the Me Too stuff adding on to the divorce stuff in the house. Oh, man, you got to get the hell up out of there. You got to know your breaking point.
In some states you can't go through a divorce without a separation. They're like
Facts.
they basically mandate you to be in another's place, which honestly it's not smart to be in the same place. You have a hostile party already, and then like I've known people to like go through their situation or whatever with their divorce, and then the spouse would be like egging them on, and get mad when they left because they were looking for somebody to lash out at the whole time.
Right, you have
Facts, all facts.
because you got it's like a crazy hot scale, right? You know, she's allowed to be as crazy as she is hot. So when you rationalize that, you know, as being heterosexual men, you know, we'll rationalize it like, okay, she's allowed to be this crazy because of how pretty she is. But not looking at it the other way. Like the way I look at it, is that tells you what level of crazy you base it off of the level of crazy you want, right? Like if your crazy tolerance is a 6, then the max you should be looking for is a woman who's a 6 in the face. You know, but a lot of guys don't see it that way.
Well, I mean, it's going to the point now where all it is about box, you know, to try to church it up a little bit. So it's not even about like, you know, looks and all that other stuff. They'd be like, well, it's just all about the box. And you know how
Well, I was speaking in the scope of like a spouse, because we're talking about people these are the domestic situations.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I was just thinking relationship only because you know, they were overlapping the Ashley Janae situation with this. I mean, even though, you know, they were engaged, I guess the video was posted on April Fool's of their engagement. I find that very ironic too. That's crazy.
Yeah, to me, what I think happened in that circumstance is I think that he probably been putting her hands on her. From what I understood was she even had to pay for the trip to Africa, which to me, if you done with a guy who quote unquote he worth $45 million, a trip to Africa, another $12,000-$15,000, that's nothing to them. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question, ADS. Where is everybody getting these anecdotes from about who pays for what and who's really balling and not? Because I'm way outside of it. I don't know what's true. So like, where is everybody getting that particular line from?
Google articles, man. Just do the research. Hold on, I'll find a little bit
Okay,
for
so
you.
it's been reported is what you're saying. It's been reported by like news sources.
Yeah, Janae, what's her last name?
Actually, Janae Robinson, I think, is her official last name.
Janae Robinson.
Because like, you know, it just reminded me of like when that whole, remember that guy Austin Metcalf, when those kids at that high school and there was a stabbing or whatever, everybody just started coming up with all these conspiracy theories about the boys and like, how do you know all these things? And so now I'm hearing the same thing play out again about like, oh, he was really in trouble and he didn't have the money he said he had. I'm like, maybe that's true, but how does everybody know this shit so fast?
I think they took it down, right? It was on, I think one of those sites like I forgot. I think it was something like it's on Facebook or it's one of those sites. But now it's just talking about her, right? How she died on the trip and all whatever. But a couple of days ago, they had more information up, so I guess people asked them to take it down. But
well, you do got to be careful though too, because even the Forbes like estimates and net worths and stuff like that, for example, has like been wildly like either overstated or understated, like just inaccurate.
I
And,
mean,
you know, people do be making stuff up too. So I'm just, you know, grain of salt.
I mean, people don't understand that when you're a millionaire, you could take out a loan for $50 million, and that right there will be added to your net worth, even though it's debt. Just the point that it's a $50 million loan also plays into your net worth, right? It's like I forgot. Cardi B was doing that. She took out a $200 million loan, right? So that got added to her net worth. So now she's worth 250 something million, when really it's a $200 million loan in there that she got paid off over a lifetime, right? So stuff like that. But you know, so it's just the ins and outs that the average people don't know about when it comes to like your net worth and how they rank that, right? What's that really based on? It's not really based on your assets and what you own. You know what I'm saying? It's based on a lot of different factors, man. Some of it's like those huge loans they tend to take out too.
Yeah, it depends on how liquid you are in your finances, no matter how much you have. So if you're leveraged up to your shoulders, you know, that's a different financial situation than somebody who's like debt free.
Let me read this super chat real quickly. Shout out to Dick Doug with the $10. I told my sisters that if they choose to get with a violent individual and he ends up deleting them, I will exclude myself from the funeral as your choice shouldn't interfere with my work hours. Oh,
Yeah.
that's wicked. Your choices should not interfere with my work hours. Shout out to Dick Dog with the $10. Smash the super chat button for me, y'all.
Hulk! Smash! Smash you! You make Hulk angry. You not like Hulk angry. Hulk no like fighting girls.
You know, real talk as a father of daughters who's in the red pill space. I think about how do I draw the line with my daughters? Like, where do I say, hey, once you get to this
I have
level of
a
stupidity,
question. What is
I'm
up with
out.
the space age capsule that you just gave me? How do I open this?
So basically what you're gonna do, I can't open it in here for you, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna slide, you see the arrow? You're gonna slide it up and then pull the cap up.
Just pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thanks for that, Hood.
Now we all know how to open it.
You know who did a great coverage of the Aston Janae thing this morning?
I didn't even
You know who
realize
did
I was on mute. Nah, because I just went to the fucking dispensary and they gave me some shit that's basically like unopenable. I'm like, you know I smoke weed, right? You gotta tell me how to do this.
You know who did a great like breakdown of the Aston Janae thing today? Anton did. If you can find his video from earlier today, he did an excellent job of breaking that stuff down, man. He really did. What happened, how it occurred, and all that good stuff.
He actually can be decent at times whenever he's not on the ego rant. Mystery,
He's good. He's good until he gets on the manosphere. Like his
I
opinion
tell
of
you,
red pill, or well, not of red pill, but like passport bros, some of the subgenres and all that. That's when he started get wonky, get all like True Hype said, he get all egotistical and everything.
but he changed his mindset even on that. You remember when he went to Japan? Man, he lost his damn mind over there, man.
I ain't seen that yet, but
No, now that was like an eye-opening red pill thing for Anton. Like he went to Japan and immediately knew that almost every American man is getting shortchanged by women. That was basically his take on Japan. Just and it wasn't just the female interactions because I don't think he went over there like chasing chicks or whatever. But it's just noticing the vibe and how things are done, and the attention to detail and the customs of Japan is like, damn, we fall so short compared to other countries. Which is another thing why I think like black people dating interracially, whether it's for men or women, I think it does create a level of sort of awkwardness and discomfort among just the rank and file black people because there's a lot about just the normal ins and outs of black culture and relationships in black culture that looks retarded to the outside world.
I mean, I'm
That's
going
just
to
like
be honest
gypsies.
with you. I'm going to be honest with you. Hood, black culture is just a subculture of American cultures, like white cultures, like Asian, like all that's just subculture of American culture. To me, if you're dating somebody, you know what I'm saying? First, you got to understand that you're an American man above all that other bullshit, right? That people try to label you as. And then you got to go off ethnicity, right? You know what I'm saying? Her religious, her beliefs, you know what I'm saying? What you share in value and culture, right? Versus race. Because if you're dating this based off of race, you are doomed to fail, man. You are simply doomed to fail because there might not be anybody in your race or the race that you're targeting that specifically meets, you know what I'm saying, your needs and your values. So you just got to put me, I date off ethnicity, right? She can be white, black, Puerto Rican, or Hindu. I don't care. She can be, you know what I'm saying, Latin. I'm good with that. Just more based on what we have in common versus what we don't. So, for a lot of folks that get caught up in too many of these culture wars, right? With, oh, this is black culture, this white, this pro-black. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. And I think those people who do that, you know what I'm saying, that there's a reason why you got 60% of, what is it? Was it 50-some% of black men single and almost 75-80% of black women being single? Because at the end of the day, it's been a culture war this whole time. and the shit don't mesh nor match well, right? Some of it's just illusion, delusion, but most of it's just the simple fact of the matter is that we don't share the same values, especially black men and black women. We don't share the same values.
Well, that's a great point. What if I had to ask you, spitball, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you introduced it. I want to go down this tangent. If I had to force you to answer, what would you say the values of black women are, generally speaking, ADS? And I'm gonna go around the
Gypsy.
table, but I want to get it from ADS first.
First and foremost, what's the thing you heard them scream most about? Let's just start with that. They don't scream much about love. They don't scream much about commitment. They don't scream much about loyalty. You know what I'm saying? They don't scream much even about faithfulness. The first thing come out of their mouth is money. That's usually the high topic conversation. How much money does this man have, right? I'm targeting a high value man. I'm targeting, you know what I'm saying, a guy who does this, a guy who does that, right? I'm targeting this group of men, you know what I'm saying, the guys who have the money. But they haven't asked anything about character, value, not even religious, you know what I'm saying? Right? I mean, Catholics and Protestants are basically the same thing. They are a little different. So it's all right to marry a Protestant. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But on the Christian side, what values does she share with you? You know what I'm saying, as a human being, is she, let me get the juice. I just think almost most black folks, when it comes to relationships, are underdeveloped. I think we're programmed too early in to make money. It's about money. It's about money. To the point where we put money as the number one factor in relationships and wonder why we all fail. You know, like for instance, in the year 2026, for a lot of black women, what you'll learn is relatively quickly that they'll go for their preference first versus what they need in character, values, and everything else. I'm saying they'll put that secondary to the preference of the 6 and 6 and 6, right? Or the 6 in most cases, because most of those niggas don't have the money; they just have the height and a big dick. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that I've learned.
Speaking of niggas, let me ask you this last question. I'm going to send it around the table. I want to ask the last question. What do you think the values of black men are in that same regard?
Pussy. The vast majority of black men is just pussy hounds, thirsty as fuck, dumb as shit. You know, they
So
don't
we got
get
money on the one hand and pussy on the other.
exactly, and that's why you got so many babies out of wedlock.
I want to kick it to the table. Anybody else want to give me their take on that? What do you think the values of black women and black men are, respectively?
I was gonna say that if you describe black culture as who's more, or if you say this description, who's most likely after a Sunday after church to have a barbecue, have fried chicken and watermelon, and get into fights over pride, you will immediately assume black people. That's actually rednecks. So the reality is that black Americans seriously do have redneck culture, and this is to the point where when black Americans, when black Southerners did the migration to the north and to the west, the black people that were already there didn't want them there because they didn't want that version of blackness around. Books like Our People or The Dark Ghetto by Kenneth Clark talks about that there's actually always been the separation between the black quote unquote bourgeoisie or boule and the black underclass that largely adopted a redneck way of living. And this redneck way of living is also in England. If you go to England and you go to the Chavs or these poor white people, they behave exactly like poor black Americans. Down to the Ebonics, down to the fighting for no reason or fighting over territories, obsession with luxury goods in their world, group of Burberry, getting pregnant, being on benefits and being all the same thing. And I'm like, this is why I realized it's not necessarily a color thing. It's a culture thing. And this particular type of culture, a redneck or drunkish poverty culture, once you adopt it, if you don't get away from it, it'll ruin your life. So to conclude, black women, what they're obsessed with is, they're not obsessed with money per se. They're obsessed with the symbolism of money. They don't actually care about money. If you came to them with $1 million bank account or $100 million bank account, but they didn't spend it on anything, they wouldn't care. They care about outward shows of wealth. That's what they care about. Black men,
status
they care about
signifiers.
Right, status signifiers. Black men, they care about impressing women, chasing women, and showing to other black men that they have women. That's about it.
You know what's interesting about that too? As much as black men chase women, they chase women to effectively be on the same plane as women, where I think a lot of other men enjoy being above women in one capacity or
So
another.
black men are part of a matriarchy. So you can't take a patriarchal model and apply it to black men. Their thought process is different because they were raised by their single mothers. So in their mind, it's the high status of impressing women. Once women accept you and once women valorize you, you arrive to a black man because they live in a matriarchy. To other men, they could care less what their women think. It's the other men in their society what they care about because they're patriarchs. So they care what other men think.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this? What do you think the values of black men and black women are, respectively? Because I think ADS is right. We are basically completely divergent when it comes to like our value sets, but I want to kind of nail down some just core ideas for both sides. Because I think I do agree largely that it is pussy and money on one side and the other. But I wonder any deviations from that from you guys.
I mean,
Well, I believe.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Hank.
I was just gonna say that for the most part, they're 100% true, right? Until you get into like a higher class where they're willing to separate, then the math or the nature changes because the culture is different.
Well,
Now, I
I'll
wasn't
go
the
with like
culture
the
as much,
general.
but when you get to a certain status, because I'm just coming to that realization too. Let me give you some examples, right, of status in society, how it kind of works, right? When I was
But you,
back at, let me give an example, and you guys can jump in on it, tell me what you think, right? Back in 2012, 2013, I got a condo, right? And back in 2015, I got my first Jeep four-door Wrangler. It was a 2015 model, right? And I remember all the attention I was getting from women. It was insane. I mean, like women wanted to jump in, women wanted to be around you, women wanted to go to your condo. So before I had a pretty little girlfriend, right? She was mixed chick. Me and her was together for a couple of years. Well, for a minute, you know what I'm saying? I went through it, right? So I ended up dating like a little black chick for a minute. And then from there, you know what I'm saying, I went single again for a while. So I'd say, you know what I'm saying, the last 4 years, I've been kind of rebuilding, reestablishing myself, getting back to, you know what I'm saying, in a better place right there than was then. So recently I just got a Gladiator. I remember I had my Wrangler driving around. I mean, I wasn't getting no attention from these black women.
Bro, you know, for a second, when you said Gladiator, I thought you were talking about a BBW. My mind literally went to like, were you dating the big black girl? What do you mean by Gladiator?
No, true. And then guess what? That attention started jumping off the charts again. It just shows how materialistic they are in their brains, right? But they have to literally see you with it to believe that you have it. And then once they believe that you have it, then all of a sudden it can go from literally no attention to like an overload of attention from women.
And again, you having that quote Gladiator, not well, that's like a Jeep, right? That's a model of a Jeep, right? So I love those. I love those. The whole Jeep Wrangler. That's like a whole subculture by itself too. But it's what we just said earlier, a status signifier, right? They know nothing about you, but they look at the car because cars have always done that for men. So ever since cars came out, that's what cars have been for men. And so they look at the type of car and then they kind of make assumptions about where they can go with you based on the car.
Facts, but it's to me, you know, the way I see it is, you know, it's more of a mindset type of deal, right? Than it is any type of culture. You know, when you have abundance, you know, saying you're not as concerned about like for say instance, if you got an abundance of watermelon, you got a watermelon garden, you ain't concerned about no damn watermelons, right? You go out there and pick one anytime you want to. But when you can't find watermelon, you know what I'm saying, and you want watermelon, right? That's when you're concerned about watermelon. Like, damn, where can I go get this watermelon at? And then all of a sudden you're paying this crazy upcharge, right, for watermelon. You know what I'm saying? Where it was free in the back of your garden, now you're paying $11 just for a watermelon upside the truck. You know, and people pay it. People pay it every day. But it's one of those things, man. I think it's more about how do you say it? Supply and demand. That's what really kind of changes your mindset. If you got so much of something, then it's no big deal that you have it. You focus on other things versus when you have none of something that you really like or you really enjoy, you really want, then all of a sudden that becomes your primary focus, right?
I want to introduce another subject, and actually, I'm hoping maybe. I'm hoping John Galt gets a chance to come up here before we wind this down later. I'm going to run this for a while anyway, but John introduced the topic because he's in DC, and John is a landlord in DC, and he does his own content. He puts a lot of things on display, but he actually gets out among the people as well too. Sometimes, street interviews and stuff like that. One of the things John Galt introduced to the conversation last night that got everybody chimping out was the fact that there's a lot of unattractiveness in the average community and the community. And we were having a discussion, I guess, about the black population, and he introduced the idea that the black men and the women really kind of hate each other right now. And he brought up as a tangent, he brought up the idea that the black men aren't really, I guess the black women aren't just attractive as on the whole in a lot of areas. Like in these ghettos, there aren't a lot of really attractive black women. And I guess, women are a lot harder to hate if they're ugly. I mean, they're a lot harder to like when they're unattractive, I suppose. And I kind of try to clean it up a little bit and say, in my own opinion, I think a lot of the ghetto especially, not like your average middle class, but like in the ghetto, in the hood, there's what I call a beauty desert. Whereas like the attractive women are truly like few and far between,
Yeah, Hood. How you doing? Hello, everybody.
Ryu, what up, man?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you? Yeah, I kind of tried. I gritted my teeth and listened to a little bit of that interaction this morning. Early this morning. I was kind of like, okay, yes, I don't know. I don't understand what the rest of the panel was not seeing, right? And I'm here in the upper Midwest, and I mean, even as a kid, right, I would see. I witnessed the decline of, like the inception of how you say the beauty desert, and it's not just like the physical appearance; it's actually kind of the aura that you put off. The energy that you put off, frowning, not making eye contact, or if you are making eye contact, it's a resting bitch face. If you do say something nice, they act like they don't hear you, or it's a hostile comeback, and versus, if you talk to non-black females, whether they're attractive or not, you may get a smile, you may get eye contact, they may even say hi to you first, or nod or whatever. So I've noticed this isn't just day to day. I mean, here in the upper.
I'm sorry, somebody's got like some scratchy background stuff going on. If you're not talking, can you mute up? Because I'm hearing too much feedback. It's killing Ryu's input.
So yeah,
I can tell you, Ryu.
And I'm up in in a pretty decent enclave of the Twin Cities here, and I am seeing a decline, and what was his name, Galt was saying was absolutely true. And again, I'm perplexed as to why nobody else is seeing that. They were completely.
Well, Galt brought it up in the context of just obesity.
Right.
And I expanded it to just, it's a beauty desert on the whole. And then when you bring up aura, I think that's another factor, and it goes alongside, because physical attractiveness is one thing. Like, you can be a 6 or a 7, but you can have really great aura that puts you up there to like an 8, maybe. You know what I mean? This is how girls win. It's not just being pretty; it's also being likable and personable.
When again, that goes to my answer for your last question about like where they differ. Black women, they believe in private privileges and responsibilities. Private privileges and rights and all that, but public responsibility and cost. So, like you said, they're in a beauty desert, but it's everybody else's fault. I'm in here because you had I think it was Stacey Abrams who was talking about, she was blaming her black women's obesity on Trump. And they have that whole rhetoric going on. It's everybody else's fault that I'm here. But when it comes to rights and responsibilities, they want it very private, right? Because when Ice Cube presented his plan, it was like, oh, what about black women specifically? Even though his proposal was covering all black people, they still wanted private, explicit rights for them. Whereas how that differs with black men in general is that they want kind of the same, but it's different though. everybody wants the lame, responsible cornball to cover the bill at the end of the day. I think that's just secondary to what was stated before.
Like I was saying before, it's a confluence of things. One, you got an underclass. When you go globally and you look at all underclasses, whether it's in Australia with the New Zealand with the Maori, or in West Coast with some Hispanic groups, England with some white groups or black groups, France with Serbs, they all have similar tendencies. All underclasses have similar tendencies, just like all upper classes around the world have similar tendencies. The black community was an underclass, and then you had the government come in and promote social welfare to the woman, making it a matriarchy because now women are a resource. And so what the men do, and also segregation and all the redlining, and also discrimination against black men. Black men were not employed or couldn't be employed or whatever. So now the men seek resources through their women. So women are above men in that community. In addition, you have Marxism or socialism, which tries to do an inversion of trying to take ugly and make it beautiful and make beautiful ugly, or try to destroy the idea of beauty, because beauty creates a hierarchy. So when you put all this together, you have the Black American woman. You have a matriarch who believes that her being big is not going to stop her from getting men, because the men don't have any standards. The men don't have any standards because the men are not resourced. The men don't chase money; they chase women. So as long as the man gets money, he thinks he's good. He doesn't care. Whereas in other societies or other places, the men chase money, and then the women chase the men. Since the women chase the men have to conform to the standards that the men want in order to get men. That's why there's a beauty desert in the Black community.
You know, I've seen that play out. I know. I think. Well, I'm gonna give it to you a second. Whoever is speaking, but I've seen that play out in one odd way. I came across the clip. I think SKC introduced me to this clip. There was like some tiny little culture. It was like a little island somewhere off the coast of like West Africa, right? And for whatever reason, they kind of were untouched by like slavery and colonialism back when that was popping. So they managed to like really maintain their OG culture up until relatively modern times, right? And they were a very matriarchal group. And being matriarchal, I noticed this right away. The men were trying to be beautiful, and the women didn't give a shit about being beautiful.
Exactly. Well, hold on. It's like that. Come on, look at India. India's a prime example of this. The ideal Indian man is a guy with a beer belly, a mustache, glasses, with a wild accent. But he gets bitches. Why? Because he's probably productive when he's handling his business. Meanwhile, the Indian woman is a skinny little thing wearing a sari. Why is it like that? Because it's patriarchal. Any patriarchy, the women are going to be prettier because the men want pretty women. In a matriarchy, the women are going to let themselves go because the men have to prove themselves to be with the women. And that's how the Black community is. In the Black community, you don't have conversations that take place in the Black community in other places. Meaning that you're not going to have conversation with a panel of men, have women tell them, I have 4 babies from 4 different men. Why don't you give me a chance? That only happens in the Black community. Because other communities will look at you crazy.
Well,
that's what I was talking about, the public responsibility. They want somebody else to come in and foot the bill, right? They go out and get pregnant about who they want, and then want the guy they need to be stepdaddy to pay the bill. That's a form of, and then they be on social programs as well. So that's also a part of that public responsibility, spreading the cost out to other people instead of keeping it private as well.
Well, I want to kind of state, my stance on all this, because for those of you that, follow me on X or Twitter or social media or whatever, I kind of come from this whole interracial dating thing, both in very, very real time and for a long time. And my main question is, why is it at this day and age? All right, we're in the 21st century. Why are we even still talking about this? Why is this a big deal? Right? I'm with what American Man was talking about the other day about, your analogy was apropos, Hood, with the Gordian knot. because I am always looking through how can I just cut this knot in half. Yeah, I'll tangle it if it's possible, but at the end of the day, as what's his name put it, there is no fixing this at this point, right? Other than showing improving. Me, I just walk away. I just do my own thing, right? I built my own hut from the ground up. I'm not trying to share with nobody that ain't trying to share back with me personally. So my question is, why is this even a thing? Now I get the divestment aspect of it, to a certain degree. I do get that, and why it is kind of a deal, because that seems to be a trend. But then the pendulum or the conversation or the microscope always gets pushed back on quote unquote black men. Whereas me, I just walk away from it, right? To be honest. But I'm
when you say
affected by proxy by other black people. That's why I make it my business.
when you say when you say it's a thing to who?
To everybody who's talking about it, who's making a big deal about it, right? To black people in general, black women. Black men are not supposed to talk about what happened to old girl, and we don't even really know what the facts are on the ground, to be honest, from what I know. And like I said, in the conversations that are had, for i.e., on what's his name, Witch Doctors panel that I listened to that Hood posted, it's like this. It's always this sort of like, these terms, dating outside your race, right? I mean, what the heck? What does that mean? As a 55-year-old, almost 55-year-old black man, Gen Xer, why are we still having this conversation? And yeah, I've had my passport since 18. So
I can answer that question to you, and it's because the reason why we're having this conversation is because guys like you are considered to be the problem.
Why? Okay.
It's like because you said in your statement, you said this is my hut and I'm not sharing it with anybody, and that's the problem.
Okay.
Because they are Marxists. They are Marxists and socialists. They want you to share your hut.
I was raised by one. I know. And I'm not
right. And they want you to share. They want you. Even though you build your hut, you're not bothering anybody. They want you to share your hut.
They don't want you leaving the plantation. They don't want you leaving. You're leaving the plantation, trying to escape. They don't want you escaping. That's literally what it is.
They want you as a community unit, and you refuse.
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
It's already too late. I'm gone, right?
Yeah, I know, but they don't want the idea spreading. They don't want other people leaving.
I think Ryu. I mean, to try to get at the question, I think it's more we're I'm kind of going over some of the ideas from the previous conversation, as you mentioned, and what I think is happening in that regard, especially like with people who notice how like a lot of Black YouTube is focused on constantly having gender talks and dating conversations and all that. And I really try to not do that every single time I get on the air. I like to talk about a wide variety of stuff, but I notice a lot of the Black YouTube kind of is stuck on that thing. And I get the feeling like Black America is like trapped within itself and it's desperately trying to escape itself.
Well, it's trapped in itself because historically, if you did any research on matriarchies and why there was no powerful matriarchal kingdom, it's because matriarchal societies always failed when they encounter patriarchal societies. Because patriarchal societies, whether right or wrong, with their faults, they have something that matriarchal societies don't, which is a way to give benefits to high quality men. You're in a matriarchal society and you outperform and you outproduce. What do you get? Nothing.
Pop the balloon as an African mating ritual was hilarious, by the way. Now I gotta play some drums and shit every time I play a pop the balloon clip. You gotta put some we gotta play the Lion King behind one of them shits now.
Nah, dub in some Last Poet riffs with the bongos.
I was gonna say every man in the matriarchal society is gonna leave and get a better deal. That's what's happening in the Black community. So the Black community is stuck in the underclass because anytime they have a prominent Black male who could lift the society or lift the culture or lift the community, will most likely leave and join another community.
And you know what I've noticed too about that? There is no upward pull almost. There's a downward pull like to the baseline gravity of Black American culture, but like there is an upper class Black America. You know what I mean? Like not every Black person is trapped in the ghetto, stuck in some delusion or whatever. However, it doesn't seem like there's a huge pull like motivation to go move upward or something like that. I don't know. I'm having a hard time really getting this off properly, but it just seems like all the energy is to pull people toward the median and not to kind of, aspire people upward.
No,
Actually,
that's
it's not
that's
even.
that,
It's not even. Yeah, it's not even towards the median. It's towards the underclass. What happened is that neo-Marxists infiltrated the Black church during the Civil Rights Movement, and part of the system of the neo-Marxists is to invert society so that the lower class becomes the upper class. And I know it sounds weird, but anyway, elevate the lower class as a opposition to the upper class. So whatever the lower class does is better. If they're rumpus, that's good. If they have a lot of children, that's good. If they're disorganized, that's good. The upper class being structured, that's bad. That's selling out. If you are orderly, that's bad. If you're long-term thinking, that's bad. And they do this in order to have a revolution. They destroy society so you can take it over. So when he went to the Black community, because it wasn't working with white people anymore, white people didn't buy into the ideas. So they went to women, they went to Black people, they went to gays to push these ideas. And if it got fertile ground because these people are susceptible. So now what happens is that the Black community, if you notice this, all entertainment for the Black community, all research or all literature is geared towards the lower class. That doesn't happen for anyone else. In every other society, they elevate the upper class. They elevate the upper class.
And you know what? You know what? What a byproduct of that is, as a Black person, when you do want to like aspire to a higher class, whatever, you're automatically out of the Black now.
Correct. You're not even Black anymore. Correct.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying, if you're white people and you ask them who the greatest white people, they're probably named Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, all prominent white people. You go to Indian people, same thing. Indian physicists, Indian athletes, Indian something. Then if you go to Black people, it will be the guy in the corner who sells drugs is prominent, the rapper, the athlete, the most ignorant for future. And it's like, hold on, how come in the Black community that most ignorant, ridiculous person is held in high regard? Even the most ignorant, ridiculous woman, like they say Abrams, it's almost as if they're making fun of Black people. Because in other societies, they would never do this. They would be like, hold on, you wouldn't take the worst people and elevate them unless you're trying to destabilize these people. That's what they're doing.
Okay, now that's understood. I mean, that really, really is understood. Up is down, left is right, is all bizarro world, right? So the question is, how, if one cares to do so, how does one knock these people, knock some sense into them to see that, hey, you're just a crab, literally the whole crab in a bucket analogy, and everybody in the world is looking at you as exactly that, and this is how you fix it. I'm very solutions oriented. I mean, I've been in this space, Hood. You called me out earlier. Yeah, I came to Redskill space in 2013. I was going through my divorce and shit, but that just wasn't the main thing, by the way. But there was some other things built up. But I've been listening to Angry Man, Obsidian, all of them. All the red pill manosphere dudes, white and black, whatever. And now we're here. I want to know, especially because I'm affected by proxy, because you look at me across the street, you don't know what my politics are, unless maybe you assess me by the way I dress. But even then, you don't know what my politics are, who or what I am. I'm still affected. Oh, that's a black guy over there. Well, all right. Well, that means I'm blocked in this bucket with the rest of these motherfuckers running around. Excuse my language. These cats running around, focusing on the negative stuff. And I want to
I
say
have
that
some
the
thoughts.
content that I put out there as an example, right, is the stuff was available. It wasn't available for me. I had to seek that out. When I wanted to know something, I had to go to the library. I had to wait till I was an adult to make enough money to seek the information out myself personally. And then now that I got it, I've tried to put it out there in real time. I've tried to persuade people, say, hey, yo, check this out. Look at this. This is what I'm doing. And I do a lot of different things. Let's just put it this way. I was flown out for a screen test for one of these popular survival shows. Almost got on there. And the only reason why to do that is just to show somebody with some skills and not some scared ass doofus, right? To hope that the other kids, black kids, the children, whoever, poor kids, can, if you're interested in bugs, if you're interested in hanging out in the woods, that's okay. You can do that, right? But why is it, and how do we get across to these other people in the community to stop You know, that's all I want to
Well,
know.
one, it'll never slap, but I have a lot of thoughts. Hold on, I have a lot of thoughts, and I might have to sort of slightly reset the tone as I address this question. But hear me out for a minute. Hear me out. Red
But
Illusion in the chat, he made a great comment. I want to kind of answer that question by reading this comment and riffing off of this. The black upper classes doesn't produce upper class culture anymore. It's all for the dirty masses, right? Now, I've kind of had a gripe from the black upper class and elite for a while, ever since I've been kind of commenting and then getting more and more into what I'm doing. The black upper class really, like we were just saying, they don't really produce culture for upper class behavior and other upper class. So it's all kind of directed down toward the mean. And I think that is really where you fix it in a large way. Like the power of overwhelming mass propaganda needs to be respected. You know what I mean? Like this is kind of how we get to things like that. Like you'll never erase it totally, but if you apply a lot more social and even economic pressure to a thing, it just changes. It will, because people respond to incentive. And I think there's way too much incentive for redneck nigga culture at this point in a lot of ways, whether it's a welfare, whether it's just a permissiveness in the legal system and the government and your social network systems, like your social welfare systems or whatever. It's all kind of reinforcing a bottom, the pressure toward the bottom. And I think until the upper class, until the pressure starts to come from the top to kind of force better behaviors and be intolerant of certain things, you can't change it. Like you think about when you get like these little monocultures and it tends to be a lot more organized or whatever. I think that's one of the things that's missing in Black America. Like there is no real organization. There's no pressure for any organization. There's just like a continual existence, and I think it has to come from some outside force at this point.
All right. So
I agree with Red Illusion.
I have a quick.
What he was saying, because well, before you ask your question, I think Red Illusion is pointing in the right direction. I think the problem is that Black America doesn't have any legacy brands, right? Like with white people, just an easy example, you have like Rockefeller, Ford, families of prominent people that have generation. Oh, that guy is that guy's son. Like the closest thing we have that I can think off the top of my head is LeBron James, right? His son is in the NBA, but we don't have that from like Will Smith or nothing like that, where it's like, okay, these guys are made it to the top, and now here comes the second generation, holding the name strong and everything. So for the most part, as far as like Black people's branding in the socioeconomics, it's always rags to riches. It's always one generation rich, and then after that, it kind of just fizzles out. Like, there's no follow up after that. So that's how the view is, that you go from the ghetto to the mansion, and that's just the marketing, the brand of Black people at a larger extent compared to other.
That seems like an integral part of the Black identity at times too. Like the identity of struggle. I mean, the struggle as identity, I guess, seems really, really like close to what you're saying about the Black culture.
Yeah, what I wanted to say to Hood about his response to the dynamic, there are several things that are consequent that are occurring. So if you want to answer the other guy's question about what's the solution for the Black community, well, the Black community is going to end up like Native Americans. That's just a fact, right? If you want to look at the history of what's the future of the Black community, look at what happened to Native Americans. To give you a quick synopsis of that, Native Americans were Black people before Black people were Black people. What does that mean? Meaning that the government interest in Native Americans is the same interest that they have in Black people. And look at the result. Native Americans were given reparations, they were given land, they were given all these benefits, everything you could possibly want, and had done nothing for them. In fact, it probably stabilized them to the point where they're non-specific or non-essential or relevant to our society. But there are Native American tribes that are doing very well. There are Native American tribes that have come together with their own understanding and say, you know what, we see what's happening, we need to change our culture, we need to adapt, and we need to, not become drunkards or isolationists and really incorporate modernity to our society and thrive. And there are groups of tribes that have done this and are doing well. They keep silent, they keep low profile, they handle their business, they live life. So to answer your question, that is what the Black community can do, or people in the Black community can do. They can So they're by themselves or a group of people. And this is not new. Like this is how America was founded. America was founded by experimental groups creating their own culture or identity from scratch and seeing the Quakers, Unitarians, Presbyterians, even hello?
You dropped out for a minute. Somebody just fell off.
Yeah, whoever was speaking.
Creating their own.
Yeah, he in and out. But the thing is, but my counter to what he's saying though is that when it comes to Black America, the Great Society Act, the Great Society Bill is a singularity event for Black America, right? It drastically altered the trajectory of Black Americans. So you have to, and then think about singularity events. You have to go back to that event, you know, to alter a course. You can't just correct midway. You got to go
Wait,
back
can
to
you guys hear me?
it's like a nexus event in our history. We can hear you
Can you
now,
guys
bro.
hear me? All right, so yeah,
Yeah,
what I was
you
saying is
cut
that
off for a little bit.
I was saying Simone and Malcolm Collins are in real time creating their own culture, right? And people say, "Oh, that's ridiculous." I said, "No, it's been done before." Like if you look at certain religious groups, the Amish were people who just said, "You know what? We're going to do our own thing over here," and they survived. So what I'm saying is that the only way the Black community survives is that a small subset of the Black community chooses to carve out their own way, live amongst each other, and form their own little culture amongst themselves and survive that way. That's the only way it happens. I mean, the Hasidic Jews did the same thing. The Hasidic Jews departed from General Jubilee and created their own situation. That's why they live amongst each other. That's why they have their own institution. They have a parallel system. They're not like regular Jews. They're Hasidic. That's why if you're in New York City or Jewish communities or Hasidic Jewish communities are specifically Hasidic. That's what the Black communities do. Create a certain, what do you want to call it? Live, marry, buy land, buy property, create a parallel system, and live your life and forget about the rest of Black people. Because the rest of Black people are going to act like Native Americans. And part of the reason why is because the boule or the upper class are firmly in the hands of the Democrat Party. So the Democrat Party gets the benefits to toe the party line. And so the party line is to promote ghettoism and Black people because it's very profitable for the Democrat Party and for NGOs and nonprofits to facilitate as intermediary the ghetto. And that's why it will remain that way. And why would they get that up? Because to answer the gentleman before, if the boule or someone decided to detract from them and say, "Nah, I'm gonna go to Black people and tell them that they're effing up," what's gonna happen to them? They're clean, they get lambasted, you're not Black, and you might get professional, harmed. You might lose your situation, whether you're a doctor or you might lose benefits. That's why they have the people who try to do it.
I got to bring something up too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
John
and
McLaughlin
I
tried to
can
do it.
shortly.
Can I ask a quick question to the Black Socrates?
Sure.
Real quick. Black Socrates, you said that the Hasidics broke off from all the other Jews. At this point, are the Hasidic Jews considered a minority or a majority of the Jewish population that they broke?
A minority. A minority.
A minority.
Like if you look at if you talk to most Jews, most Jews think that Hasidic Jews are French people.
No, I only point that out just because they're going to be a minority. Still, it's not going to be the brand for the entire culture.
Right. And that's
Somebody else
They're a
want to
minority.
And I'll just be real quick because I do have to go. And thanks for having me on again, Hood and gentlemen. Again, I'm real solutions oriented just because of the different vocations that I practice, and I'm not completely nihilistic there yet. I'm with SKC as far as I separate from them over there. They can stay over there as long as they keep their BS over there. That's why I kind of gravitate towards this channel. This sort of conversation, because at least they're somewhat grounded in some sort of intellectualism. But overall, I personally have moved far, far, far away from wallowing in why Black folks can't do this and why Black folks can't do that. I'd rather just link up with other like-minded people that bring other skills. And again, if I have to be, and again, we got lots of Native Americans up here in Minnesota. Trust me, I know a few. And yeah, like the Amish, like the Mennonites, like the Hasidic Jews, so on and so forth. just become your own subset. But my thing is just being associated with those others over there that are tarnishing what I look like, because there are certain things when I'm traveling in Japan and I'm sitting there watching TV with, my quote unquote Japanese family, in-laws or whatever. And I get these questions because a lot of the stuff that you will see on YouTube concerning the annex of the black rednecks, does happen on their national TV over here. And there's questions, right, that I get. And I'm just like, I try to answer as intellectually as I can, but at the end of the day, hashtag not my tribe. So that's all I got. I appreciate you, Hood. And gentlemen, thank you. Y'all have a great afternoon. I'll try to tune in when I can.
Thank you. You have a great day as well, bro. I'll see you next time.
Yep, next time.
Yeah, I was about to respond to something. You know what? Anyway, I'm just gonna go. Freeman's Journal. What's going on, brother? What do you want to jump up and add to the show?
Yo, you were talking about. I'm gonna share my screen. You were talking about the upper class, right? So it does have to revert to a Victorian model. And you see my screen? And for that to happen, well, one, you'll have to acknowledge upper class blacks, and then you would need to kind of get them to participate in showing disdain, right, for low class culture, right? You have to take these two poles and spread them apart, right? Instead of this one big Negro, right, you have to spread them apart. You create a vacuum, and people will get sucked into it, right? And that's pretty much, how it would go. But upper class blacks in America are basically Yetis. You know what I mean? It's like they don't exist. You know what I mean? Like
I don't even think it's the upper class. I mean, definitely that, but we're focusing, I think, maybe way too much on that. Where what I think it is, because I think you brought up the idea, piggybacking off of what I was saying earlier about, like, I have a certain problem with the elites and yada yada yada. They don't impose culture and structure and whatever. I think it's more than just that thin upper crust too. Because you know what I'm thinking about right now. This is what I wanted to say a second ago, Freedom's Journal, about Jesse Jackson passing, and then the other day, Ben Crump says Al Sharpton is now the civil rights leader of America, right? So that's like a whole cadre of like black political action, and because he's literally the National Action Network. That's where they were having this talk at his whole convention from the last week, and there's like this giant cadre of Black America that's effectively like nurturing the lower class dysfunction and kind of eating off of it, because the casual misery of the ghetto is actually what people are kind of trading for oppression and saying, well, you're being oppressed, and so let me fix your life with all these policies, and this is how we're kind of walking down the Democrat path. But it's like they're basically keeping the ghetto and then thriving off of the disruption and the dysfunction or whatever, instead of actually putting upward pressure, as you were saying, Freeman.
What I say to Freeman Journal is, what incentive? Because you talk about the upper class doing something, cool, but what incentive do they have to do it? Let me tell you what.
And that's it. There is no blessed oblige.
If you go to California, the biggest homeless nonprofit, the average executive there makes $750,000 a year. If you go to New York Housing Authority, NYCHA, where all the projects are in New York City, 75 executives, many of them are Black, make $200,000 plus. The president making $400,000 a year and lives in a mansion in Staten Island. Why would they give this up just to help the lower class Black people?
Okay, so I do not consider these people elites.
Okay.
Right? They are the managerial class. Just smarter than the ghetto, but not desirous of private sector wealth.
All agreement still.
So that perverse incentive, like, it works, it's there. right? So if you're, that's why I said earlier, you would have to get them too, because right now they're Yetis and they're enjoying it. I mean, because you can go, hell, North Baton Rouge is an S-hole, right? But if you go to South, there are plenty of neighborhoods that are majority or like 50% black that are really nice, right?
You know what?
Same city, same area, right? And there are black people living completely opposite poles of the socioeconomic spectrum, right? So those people
I'm
have
having.
they have to be not either. I don't know how you incentivize them. I don't have an answer to that, but I think step one is acknowledging that they exist, right?
I'm having a brainstorm. Hold on, I think I'm pulling it together. I'm having an illiterate genius moment right here. Um, we need a king of black people in America. Like make it some type of official government function position or whatever. But we have black folk need the benevolent king. That's kind of where I think we kind of cut through the Gordian knot, so to speak, and just sort of start assorting things out properly. Because I don't think you can get like you said, to solve the incentive issue. You would need someone in place to just kind of manage it all.
So Hood, I came up with two scenarios, two possible ways of accomplishing that. And every time I come up with the scenario and I think about it logically, the end result is the same, which is getting assassinated. So whoever wants to step up and do this, by all means, I even give them the plan on how to do it. There are two vectors in the black community that a person can do what you're claiming and become a king. One is the barbershop, right? So how would the barbershop be a vector? Okay, if all barbershops were franchised, so that means that you create a situation where every single barbershop in the black community is owned by one company and people can buy into it like a franchisee and run it, but they still have to kick back licensing fees to the main licensing companies, which leverages their debt and money to do advertisement and funnel people to these barbershops. Then when you do that, you create the barbershop into a central community node. So it's not just a barbershop. They also have a television screen that only produces your content or shows your content from your production company. Then you have an ATM there that only has ATM services for your bank company that gets financial services to the people who go to this barbershop, and so forth and so on, bookstore, music, etc. To the point where it acts as a vector to a whole bunch of other services you bundle together, kind of like Walmart. Now, eventually, if you did this effectively, this company would probably become very powerful for the black community, because if we put money into black people's hands, also give them job opportunities, can go to the barbershop, they also go to other jobs, the grocery stores, to the barbershop, or the bookstore, to the barbershop, or the record companies to the barbershop, or the TV companies go to the barbershop. So it all affects each other. But the problem is, once you do this and you become very prominent and powerful, and you can sway black votes single-handedly, what's going to stop it from assassinating you? They almost did it to Trump. So I want to know why that person would have fallen. Go on.
I disagree, Hood. I think black people just need justice. That's all. No more, no less. Just raw justice, benign neglect. If you know that.
Yeah, when you say justice, what exactly are you getting at? Because that's a vague term so far.
Well, you get what you got based on merit. Based on your own merits. You're not entitled to anything. Everything you get is because of what you have earned, like good or bad. So you involve in criminality, you get criminal results. But you go out there, you participate in the system, and you work in everything. You get the paycheck, and that's just it.
Freeman's Journal, he said something about like the Victorian era a few minutes ago, and speaking of the aristocracy here, maybe not a king, but regional lords that serve under an aristocracy. Yeah, Revolution. This is kind of what I'm trying to suss out mentally here. Because Freeman, I think what you're getting at, and this is just an unfortunate reality, but it is what it is. Like from a social political standpoint, maybe Black America has not just developed long enough into a certain modernity. We need to kind of get things from first principles, perhaps, right? Because like You don't want to do it because, it's white culture or whatever, fine. So figure it out for yourself. Start back from scratch a little bit and work your way back to the top again. And I think maybe you'd start back with something like the aristocracy where they have the fiefdom and they manage it for its own growth. That way everybody has an incentive to perform for their own
Yeah,
benefit.
but hold on. You're neglecting even then the Victorian aristocrats had an incentive.
No, the incentive is profit and family growth
No,
and family continuity.
that wasn't the incentive back then. It was, but it was also the fact that you could not necessarily rely on globalization. See, one of the biggest issues that affect this model now is that aristocrats can leave. Back then, you couldn't just leave like that because other aristocratic clans or societies wouldn't accept you. That's what, like Jews. When Jews came to America, the WASP aristocrats didn't accept them. They can't just leave their community and take their wealth and join WASP society. They say, hell no. So they were forced to stay within their own communities. It's kind of like what Booker T. watched W.D. Du Bois over the Talented 10. When the Talented 10 leave the Black community instead of staying. When you're forced to stay, because you can't leave, you have to develop your community. Right now, if you're an aristocrat, go ahead.
So make segregation great again.
Well, listen, I think we're overcomplicating it a little bit. All right. All that has to happen is the broader culture says, look, competent Black people living normal lives and succeeding like normal people. What's wrong with the rest of y'all? I don't think the difference between, North Baton Rouge and Black people living in South Baton Rouge is me, right? It's not America. America didn't do that to you. All you have to do is look at the habits and the culture, everything else is like, it's not us. You all figure it out. That in the larger culture would be a sea change, and it would change things immediately, because in the Black managerial class, all of a sudden it's like turning a light on in the middle of the night, right? It's gonna be like roaches, and everybody's gonna be like, well, why are they so bad, right? These cities are run by Black people and they have billions of dollars. Why can't they read still?
Yeah, but when you say see, what do you mean by see? Like see it physically, see it in person? What do you mean by see?
Say that again.
You said they'll see these Black communities that are thriving. Who will see it and how will they see it?
No, I'm talking about the larger culture acknowledging that they exist.
Yeah, but why would the larger culture do that? Like, what would be the means by which larger culture are exposed to this?
Because the larger culture is sick and tired of being scapegoated for the failures of poor Blacks.
I don't think
now.
Go ahead.
Because the non-ghetto thing to do is to talk about the air quotes dominant society, right? They try to take race out of it and go with that phrase, right? So,
yeah, because like that phrase just begs the question, which gets you back to the thing. Because who is the dominant society? What is dominant society comprised of? And it's basically white people and white values. But that's what everybody recoils from.
Exactly. So all you have to do is say, look, here are Black people with these values. Look at their results. What's wrong with
but when you say, are you saying this on a YouTube channel? Are you saying it to a radio broadcast? When you say, look,
I'm not saying, I'm not using a specific instance like it is on this show. I'm talking about culturally, right? As a general frame of mind culturally, right? I'm not talking about, it's going to be on CBS, right? Or it's going to be on, MTV or something like that.
By the way, Freeman is suggesting what I'm suggesting. He just elaborate more. You do what is successful. You will be successful. That's justice, right? You do the things that's not successful. You will fail. That's how justice works.
I
you do what works. You win.
I think one of the biggest issues is that even for the dominant Black culture that's not ghetto, they still have an issue with dropping the ghetto Blacks and leaving them alone. There's this emotional or whatever situation where they have an issue with just cutting themselves off.
It's you know why? Because they can't be Black without them. They have to be Black through them. And see, here's the thing I think is happening with like that upper class again. Is like, in order to like have that Blackness, they have to like basically support that culture in a certain type of way. So they can't just pull away from it. Now they have to turn around and say, well, you've been oppressed by the dominant society, quote unquote, give them cover and all that.
But that goes away with when you actually look at it based on with a justice-based mindset, right? With a justice-based mindset, you will look at the fact of the matter, the evidence that's behind it, and not just rhetoric. You'll be able to correlate your economic level is connected to your behavior, and also what's propping the ghetto up. Like it's not the ghetto itself.
Social services.
You know, exactly. So by having a justice-based mindset, you take away that public assistance. You have to get it on your own.
How you gonna take away public assistance?
Say it again.
Well, that's just government policy. You know, everybody knows government is intractable, but that's what we're just saying. These are the only ways that it can actually work is to do these things. You know, obviously these things ain't getting done with the flip of a switch.
Right. You have to get rid of that policy. That policy has to be reversed because once that happens, the ghetto has no legs. It's now got to get out here and actually get into the system and participate. Or in the case of the women that have to get in line with a capable man.
You know, in a lot of ways, this welfare stuff, it feels like a community with training wheels on. Like, and imagine being like, first you start out as a little toddler or whatever on a bike with training wheels. Have you ever seen like a teenager riding a regular bike with training wheels? Like, have you ever seen an adult riding a bike with training wheels? And so, like, that's kind of how the whole welfare state effectively works for a community. It's like having a bunch of adults with training wheels on.
Yeah.
So you got to remove the training wheels. Let them just ride their bikes as well as they can.
I agree, but the question is the votes. Like the votes in order to do that. I don't know what's going to happen.
Hey, you know how you see grown ass men in the hood riding bikes? That's what I thought of.
That's not true. People ride bikes everywhere. We just ride bikes that look like children's bikes.
No, it'd be grown ass men with little kid bikes and shit, little
kid bikes.
dirt bikes and shit. But that's how it is. It's like Black America. Well, large chunks of Black America effectively live, with training wheels on. And so that gives, it gives people a false sense of reality, I guess is what I'm getting at. And you got to kind of remove the training wheels.
Exactly.
So Black people live in urban, mainly urban centers, large urban centers like New York City, Atlanta, Houston, etc. Heavily Democrat. How are you going to get these Democrat strongholds to give up on social welfare?
We're like tiptoeing around another concept. I remember years ago, hold on, years ago, like, because SKC kind of, he sparked the thought, I guess, one time when it pissed everybody off. But the basic problem is you're just going to have to let a lot of it burn. You really the only way to even get to that is the country, I guess, what they call it, the dominant class. The dominant class is just going to have to get to a point where they just would rather watch it burn than to spend another dime keeping it alive.
Yeah, you gotta do the who is John Galt thing, right?
Right.
You walk away or whatever and let the whole benign neglect take effect, because he came from the earth, it's gonna return to it if it's not maintained, right? What the African dude say? What's the dude's name? Hood, the African dude.
Zanu Project.
Yeah, Zanu Project. Yeah. It's not maintained. Empire of Dust.
I think the few Black people that can sort of escape, quote unquote, just gonna have to set up shop elsewhere. With or without Black women, that's a whole other personal choice. But I'm just saying, you're gonna have to leave and reestablish your own order.
Yeah, according to mythology, Rome was founded by Aeneid, who's fled Troy. So,
right.
How many people do you really need to start something else? Abraham started a whole new nation called the Jews, him and a couple of people. I mean, like I'm saying, listen, the black community is in you. Whoever
And so
survives the black community.
in a lot of ways, the whole conversation about saving the community is a little bit passe. The community doesn't need a saving; it needs a rebirthing.
Whoever survives is the black community, right? Whoever survives is the black community.
The current iteration of the community needs to be buried. It needs to go away completely. Any remnants of it need to be like burned down to the ashes and never to be revived again.
Right. Let something new take its place.
Prime example, in the early 1900s, there were Jews from Eastern Europe that started flooding into America. And these Jews were less sophisticated, less educated, less polished than your current urbanized Jews. So what the Jews did who already were there is create benevolent societies to teach these new Jews how to behave themselves, how to curate themselves, and how to function. And several generations later, there's no distinction between these Jews and the urbanized Jews already there. I think that's the only thing that could possibly happen. The black people who have sense separate, form their own little parallel societies, create institutions for people who want to join, and then just live and thrive.
But those communities, like what you said, not even with the Jays you just mentioned, they didn't have a welfare option. They didn't have an option that fed into their laziness and into basically the cardinal sins, right?
I agree with you. Welfare is a dirty macking, some dirty macking shit. Welfare is your woman not gonna listen to you. Well, come over here, baby. I got you. I got some welfare for you. You don't gotta listen to man. You don't gotta cooperate.
It's so funny. Like in a lot of ways, a lot of modern social behaviors get broken down into just sexual politics, and from that aspect, the welfare system is effectively the government cucking the men.
Yeah, dirty macking.
Like that's really the better root of it.
It's literally welfare is the government coming to your window in your house when you're not home and talking to your woman and saying, "Listen, man, you don't gotta treat you like that. I'll put you in nice things. You know what I'm saying? I'll put you in a better house." Like, why is the government?
Hey, look, they in there singing R&B songs to your chick, man.
And at the same time, and here's the crazy part. At the same time, it's telling the man, because most men in America don't have kids. Period. It's telling them this is your baby.
Max.
Right? A woman you never knew, you never got to know or slept with, but yet you have to pay for a kid.
Which he already did the calculations that kid might end up in the system anyway, either through the prison or some other means. And so you basically take care of his kid. That's his kid. That's his kid.
No, that's what I'm saying. It really is like the ultimate cucking, on a grand mass national civilizational scale. You're removing the resources from the men to give them to these women to pay for these children that these men have no connection to, And then for the women that you do actually have, the government can just easily, well, I got you over here. You don't even need that nigga no more.
You don't listen to him. Why you listen to him? I might have said you can do what you want with me. I'll give you freedom, baby.
Exactly. And to me, it's got to go. That's really the ultimate problem, in my opinion. As long as that's an option, we're just going to continue to have what we have. Now, the current administration, they're kind of stepping in the right direction because eventually you're going to run out of other people's money, and then you're going to be forced to turn off the spigot. But until that time, until we get an administration that has the balls to cut it off completely, it's going to be there. It's going to continue to grow at some rate.
It's getting turned off.
No, I mean, I'm talking only like somewhat turned off to my off. Like we ain't got it no more. Like we can't do it no more.
They're not going to eliminate it completely, but you don't have to eliminate it completely to see that effect. I mean, the whole culture is built on, public subsidies. So simply reducing it is going to see a significant impact. Not only that, the public sector as a whole is broke, right? From state, county, and city, they are broke.
Hey,
And the communitas, the functionaries thereof are overrepresented in those jobs. So you're seeing change now.
Yeah, not only that, it's like
how many teachers were laid off in Ohio the other day? Hood, you posted that video?
Yeah, I did see that video. I don't know how many they got laid off, but it was funny. I don't even know the story why, but the cuts are coming no matter what. Things are changing.
Well,
And
one
I
important
think
time
Freeman, you were saying the administrators always fire the teachers before they fire themselves.
Exactly.
Of course.
Half
There
to
are more
a third of those
administrators.
teachers are probably black.
And there are more administrators than teachers. So of course the administrators have the votes to maintain their jobs.
So yeah, I mean, I'll make maybe it don't need to be taken out completely, but I remember seeing a report saying like the average single mother on welfare with public assistance has the equivalent income of somebody making like $60,000.
Listen, I'll tell you.
And then the average man makes about like $50,000.
Yeah.
As long as their benefits is higher than what a man can provide to them, it's going to be an issue. How about that?
I own property in PA and rent it out. And I remember seeing a woman come to me saying that she doesn't work. So I was like, how are you going to pay her rent? And she started pulling out like these stubs, whatever. She said she gets money for herself and she gets money for like 4 kids. And when I told her all the money that she was getting, it was like $60,000 to $70,000.
Exactly.
And in an area where the median income is like $28,000. So it's like, why would someone work when you're basically giving them more money not to work? And this is something about the perverse intent of our society. We want people to work hard, but then of course we give them benefits so they don't have to work hard. But we still want them to work hard.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course. A lot of these reforms will keep people from getting into that situation. So it's like they're not going to be able to, just have a kid and collect checks. It's like you're going to have to do something for that money. So they will, that will change behavior towards like not just wantonly having kids.
Well, they want the men to work hard, so the women can't. So the women don't have to work and vote.
Absolutely.
Who? What is that?
They want the men to work hard because men are the taxpayers, benefactors, so that the women can be tax beneficiaries. Where they can receive the benefits and still make votes.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I was remarking on reforms so that the women who receive the benefits would have to either volunteer, go to school, or get a job.
Who's going to keep track of that?
To maintain benefits.
Who's going to keep track of that?
Who? The people who are administering the benefits.
Oh, you think the people who administer the benefits are going to do more work?
Yes.
Who's going to make sure that
this already happened in the 90s, dude. I don't need to debate whether or not.
No. What happened in the 90s?
My own perspective with that, Freeman, is we have a situation like in Minnesota and California, right, where people who were in charge of auditing to make these audits were like, yeah, everything's legit, and then upon slight investigation, they were not on the up and up. Those audits were not accurate, to say the least.
No, what happened in the 90s is that they cut women off. They said, no more welfare, no more social thing for you. That would work. I could cut people off immediately, completely. That would work.
No, they didn't. It was the welfare to work program. They were not cutting people off. They made you go apply for jobs, basically.
Honestly, that's the way to ease and phase everything out. You have to sort of make some type of jobs program, or whatever. Force people to like match their welfare with employment.
Hey, you know how?
Are you gonna make them?
Hey,
still, that will.
enigma. Like you know how you know you're over the target with the whole fraud thing is when they start scrambling to make laws to make it illegal for you to do your own investigation.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you can't trust them. You can't trust these people to regulate themselves, right? My thing is the best way to do it is to I don't know who's saying it, but the guy who had the story about the landlord about a tenant who was getting like $67,000 in benefits. You have to reduce those benefits, right, to where it's below average. The average man is only making like $50,000, right? You got to make those benefits less than that. It can't. You can't be living off of the government more than the average taxpayer. Like that seems to make the most. If you're going to give them benefits, they can't just live better than the people who are put into the system for you to live.
And the thing is, you would have to like phase it out. Like, whoever's in there, whatever they got right now, you kind of don't touch that. But nobody else is going to get that good a deal going forward. And like every decade, every 5 or so years, you kind of just chip away at that thing. So everybody's kind of have to start like, living a little bit more in their means and all that. 'Cause it's sort of like anywhere the government puts a lot of economic incentive into a thing, it just creates more perverse incentives. It's like with the student loan thing or with Medicare, anything like that.
Right.
Hey, what they call it? Sunsetting. Trump already did this
Yeah.
with some federal jobs.
Like, in the long run, lowering the federal workforce, even though it must be a whole lot of black women they fired, still, it's a good thing in the long run. Because I've always thought, I noticed black folk are way too employed by the federal government, which is not, it's not a private sector
Wealth
job. I mean,
producing.
you're not really a
It's not a
part of the
wealth-
economy, right? No
Yeah, you're not a
wealth
wealth
production,
producer.
really.
Yeah. All you're
You
doing
can't
is
pass
shuffling,
that skill off to your kid, none of that type of thing.
and you're shuffling money around. It's like you're shuffling money around and squandering it on it economic activity.
Right. You can't leave the business to your kid, but like it's not really the generational wealth builder that they thought it would be.
And when the private sector has natural contractions due to economic tailwinds, the government remains. So they can't even adjust to economic, climate, which makes for mispricing and maladjusted economic situations.
Hey, Hood. Speaking of which, I heard your boy proposed another tax, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mr. NYC himself, man, proposed another tax.
Well, it's like a millionaire tax, I think, too. Like, I think what I heard, it was like people with non-residential second homes in New York, something crazy like that.
Yeah, but
That
they
makes
already
perfect
pay
sense.
taxes. They pay taxes 3 times over on the real estate, and they
Don't matter
want,
that.
especially people that don't live there, they want a new tax.
I don't know why people think you can tax rich people, as if rich people can't leave. The most mobile people, you're gonna tax the most mobile people. Okay.
Right. This is what I'm talking about, like justice-based mentality, right? Because if you did your work, you will understand that it is the rich people that's paying all the taxes in New York, right? They already been taxing everything. So
listen,
stop. And it's all just to feed the demand of free stuff that they want. They would understand that, okay, the more I ask for the government, the more it has to be put into the government.
That's
So at some
also a
point,
problem.
I got to stop.
I think it's also a problem. A lot of people who aren't rich, they have an assumption about rich people that is actually not true. And one assumption is that quote unquote they can afford it or they will miss money. And I'm telling you right now, I've had to fight with wealthy people over $200, and it wasn't about the amount. In their mind, it's the principle. Why should I pay any more than I need to? That's how they think. So it's not about the money. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they don't understand the rich person's mentality or what they have to do to maintain their wealth, or even if they're liquid, they could still be their debt to income ratio could be crazy because they're trying to hold on to a family farm even, but on paper they seem to be like this wealthy person. There's that video that's floating around with the teacher that's in NYC that's talking to the little the one cat to be doing the investigative joints. And the teacher's talking about, "Oh, you can't take your business to Florida. We'll take it and we'll run it." And I'm just like, man, this is crazy.
Listen, I said I've had
I think
wealthy people. Yeah.
no, I think California's doing something like that where they're taxing people who leave California. I think they're trying to
Yeah, which,
claw back
Oh,
money.
no, Hood, they've been doing that for years. I remember following cases or whatever. I heard about it like 15 years ago. A dude moved his whole operation to Nevada to be in Vegas. And dude, they went through his trash can or whatever to find documents and stuff like that in Nevada. They sent private detectives. And then they got as bold as to say that if you vacation in the state for so many days, they're gonna hit you with taxes like you're a resident.
You know what else is that? The country is moving in a weird direction too. There's this new thing. I think it's probably going to get crushed in the Supreme Court. But this lady in Virginia, right? Speaking of Virginia again, where we started at, this lady, the governor now, I think she passed a law basically like outlawing like the electoral college, not outlawing it, but basically they're going to just like give a full population count instead of giving out individual electoral votes. So in a state like Virginia, it's always going to be Democrats who win, and then it's always going to be a bunch of Democrat electoral votes. So trying to do an end run around the electoral college, basically trying to nullify the electoral college.
Which is silly because they would have had to give their votes to Orange Man in this.
True, but they don't see that though. This is battle space preparation, y'all.
Right.
A census, a census in which illegals are not counted, Democrats are going to lose 20 House seats, right? And they're going to lose a significant amount of electoral votes. So this is battle space preparation. But the thing they don't anticipate is, you're going to drive Republican turnout. In safe red states, you're going to drive turnout like all the way up.
Not only that, you're also going to drive productive people away from your state, which is what's happening to California and New York, because in order to sustain yourself, you need tax receipts. So if you keep on doing things like this, the productive people are going to leave, and then all of a sudden now you don't have the money to pay for your welfare programs.
Absolutely. And they're going to create a preference cascade with this exit tax, because if it gets close, people are going to leave like instantaneously, because the people that they tax are really like super rich, right? Like 200. And I didn't believe that. I knew it was heavily weighted. I thought the number was around 5,000, maybe 10,000, but 200 people in California, 200 pay almost 30% of the income tax revenue. 200. So you're talking about a stunningly small amount of people that have to leave in order to absolutely cripple a state.
Yeah, but 20% of tax of income, 90% of income tax is paid for by the top 20% of income payers or income makers. People who make top 20% income. They pay 90% of all taxes.
What is the strategy?
10% is way higher than 200, right? You understand? 200 people in a state of 40 million pay a third.
What is the plan? Is a migration strategy? Is to get the liberals out of the stronghold of California and New York and get them to spread across the country in the first place, so you can saturate these red states, these red areas. That's how I feel.
Like, how say that again?
What if the strategy is to get the liberals, the leftists, to migrate to these red states, right? You raise the taxes. You raise the taxes just
I get
enough
what
to
you're saying. I get what you're saying, but that didn't actually happen. Florida became more red. Texas became more red because people move in like herds, right? You got liberal Californians don't all move to Texas. They don't, right? conservative Californians that leave move to Texas, right? The liberals go to like Idaho and Washington and like Montana, right? That's how it plays out in real life. That's why all the Californians went to Colorado and Colorado turned blue, right? So based on like, that's just how they move, like based on evidence, and this is historical and whatever, you can look it up, but that isn't what happened.
Right. I know, like they're not going to take over strongholds like Texas, but like you said, they flip Colorado.
Yeah, but that's a trend that's happened over like 10 years though. Colorado was turning that way. Like
Right, but you feed into it with the
not
migration.
necessarily because
Like
a lot of
you
the
at
cats
least take care of the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, but a lot of the cats, when they could escape, they would have escaped a long time ago. They're forced to stay there because guess what? If they're not in subsidy, then they're going to be in subsidy. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't make enough to be able to move. They can't afford to move. You know what I'm saying?
Because here's the thing, these places are mostly leftist, right? So they have a lot of leftist policies, right? Like a lot of people draining the tax fund. What I'm trying to say, that are draining the state funds, right? So you raise the temperature just enough to where they leave. But like in California, from what Friedman's saying, everybody leaves except for that 200, and maybe like another 80% of the tax revenue.
Of that 200 people in California, for example, to use that, like how many of those people are actually smart enough to understand that the policies that drove them out? It's going to be a lot of them. They're going to be like, hey, look, I'm trying to keep more of my money. That's the reason why I'm going to Florida, where they're proposing like no property tax or whatever, which would be crazy if that happened. There's like 3 states now, maybe 4. They're proposing that.
Well, what I'm saying is you get them to go to the low hanging fruit. Like, hey, like prior to you, like, hey, California, Colorado is a good alternative. They're turning blue, so maybe we can go over there where it's cheaper and push the blue vote over in Colorado and help the party as a whole. If somebody was to think that far, you feel what I'm saying? Because each of these leftists that leaves these states, like New York and California, that's another way of them trimming balancing their budget. Because you get these leeches out of here.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to demagnetize the state fast enough for the crumbling infrastructure and tax base. New York, for example, like New York City with Mondami, like there's not going to be enough, and it's going to happen too fast, and the overwhelming weight is just going to crush everything. Which is kind of sad, right, for a historic city to go out like that. Especially after like the 80s and the 90s, when you know what I'm saying, like basically the Disneyfication of Times Square.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild that the fact that it's going to go back to that.
I don't know. I mean, I just popped up while we were talking because it just seems too crazy that there's just so gun ho about these unfavorable policies. Especially when you're tax based, especially when you know the fact that the rich people pay all the taxes, and they're trying to tax them even more. Like it seems like there's at least a factor of migration that's getting these spreading out these leftist voters instead of just keeping them tight within two sections of the country.
Well, like this is the problem with the whole central planning and thinking they're smarter than the problem, not understanding that it's an ecosystem, right? And like anything you introduce to the ecosystem can threaten it or make it like flourish. Similar to them whenever they it reintroduced those wolves in the Yellowstone, and now the wolves are like going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, they were here a long time ago, but not truly understanding the fact that okay, they have either died off, got killed off, whatever, and the ecosystem changed or evolved, around them without them. And now when you reintroduce them, now it's just like, hey, it's like super invasive now.
So I don't know. Because that can go either way. Like, are they the super predators? Or is there nobody to control the population, or are they not able to adapt? You know what I mean? When it comes to that kind of thing.
Well, the people that are in charge that are making all these moves and are allowing the envy or whatever, some of them are just not. They're envious enough, but not smart enough to really, you know. Yeah, you don't have to be smart to be malicious, even to the levels that they're gonna be. You know what I'm saying? To do that kind of damage. Same thing with the wolf thing. That, like, I guess they're a super predator now because, you know what I'm saying, like, there's nothing to oppose them. Similar to
Exactly.
the California legislation, right? The Republicans are so like have like almost no power, even though in some areas they're pretty concentrated or whatever, right? But it's such a super majority in the state that nothing's gonna move. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm thinking. They're trying to make these leftists invasive to these areas because they don't. They're going to go to these other areas, start demanding things, and it's going to sound good to the low hanging red voters, and that's how it's going to be like Colorado. They just slowly flip them over. It might be something that the Dems, because the Dems do think long term, right? Like the whole migration thing. Under the current policies, you know, with birthright citizenship and all that jazz, they could have these illegal migrants come over, have a baby in the States. Now they can stay here and then indoctrinate that second generation into becoming blue voters for the future. I mean, that's a whole generational plan right there.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but like the AOCs ain't doing that. That's like a super small majority that's their plan, but you know the best laid plans of mice and men, right, are often led astray. I mean, they tried to indoctrinate a bunch of kids into all the rainbow stuff, and look what happened. It actually flipped on them because nobody likes to be preached to. Even the people that do the preaching, or excuse me, lecture.
You know what's interesting about that too? And it's like there's this idea, I guess, deep in like left wing philosophy called like tabula rasa, the idea that you can start humanity from some type of clean slate and just make them whatever you want. But in fact, like in a lot of ways, just being a biological creature dictates a huge amount of our reality, and that sexual drive plays into it. Now a lot of the kids are just naturally averse to all of the stuff that they're trying to slowly like indoctrinate them with. And that's why the pushback is so organic though. Is why, they're saying younger kids, like the younger generations are coming up, a lot more bullying and homophobic and all that stuff. And it's like as much as they've been trying hard to tamp it out, they just couldn't stop it from happening. Because you're just running up a natural wall at a certain point. Like there's only so far you can try to remold people before they eventually like rebel against whatever you're doing.
Well, you know, the environment dictates most of this stuff. So like we've created an environment where people actually don't have to necessarily deal with reality. You know what I'm saying? They got VR headsets for that. You know what I'm saying? So instead of not even alcohol and drugs for the most part for the younger kids, right? They're just like, oh, I'll just play these video games. You know, same dopamine hit, right? Crazy.
Even that is that's a whole different phenomenon with like I wonder because I've heard a lot of reporting on this where alcohol consumption is down greatly among American youth right now. And a big part of that is just demographic changes because, there's a lot of, different cultures, Muslims or whatever, they don't drink. So that's probably huge areas of America that just don't drink as much as they used to because of that. And then also in general, drinking is a very social activity by and large. Like most people don't drink alone in their bedroom. So I think that's a sign of America having a lot of less social interaction, especially between young men and women. How many relationships really got formed, men going out and buying drinks and getting women and buying women drinks and striking conversations and seeing where that goes?
You imagine like alcohol companies like starting to get like social interaction back up so they can get their money?
That wouldn't be a bad idea. Alcohol companies start creating little social networks and shit.
Speed dating
Sponsorship.
events.
Yeah, yeah. Brought to you by Hennessy. Pop the
Hey,
balloon, sponsored by Hennessy. Yo, that'd be wild.
just stay away from the Ciroc events.
I'm telling you, oh shit, the Diddy ones. Well, he don't own that no more. I think that it's safe. They ain't got no Diddy oil in Ciroc bottles.
Well,
But like,
he
that's
never
what they got to do, though.
he never truly fully owned it though. But he presented
Right.
like he owned, like he was like a minority owner in that stuff. But they were promoting that stuff like, oh yeah, for the culture and all this. And I'm like, I don't believe none of these cats, man. Show me the paperwork.
But people are having like way, way less social interactions. So I think that's a huge problem. Like that whole birth rate thing. That's another issue that was brought up on that panel last night too. I was trying to point out, like, so John Galt was up there and he was saying how black men and women is evidence that black men and women are really at odds with each other right now because they're bickering over the Ashley Janae thing. And I brought up to just sort of help his point that, yeah, obviously, there's a lot of conflict happening right now. The birth rates are kind of flat. And all birth rates, we thought all birth rates were down, and technically they may be down in general. But I pointed out, and I had people look this up and confirmed it. The black birth rate is really low, whereas like white people actually started having a little bit more kids recently, so they're outpacing Black America. And then you got all these immigrant populations moving in, and the black birth rate is probably being held up by immigration to some degree too. But Black American birth rates in general are down. And I don't know. Like, I don't think Hennessy can fix that.
But I mean, like, you if your stuff was like stagnant, what is it? You have to have 2 kids for replacement, basically, like 2.1, something like that. So
Yeah.
if your stuff is stagnant, that's the only way to maintain it. All right, we know some people here and there, or whatever, like the edge cases, so you throw them out. You know what I'm saying? The ones having like 8 kids, whatever, with like multiple fathers, or even like more than 3 kids with the same man. You know what I'm saying? That they get thrown out because it's so minuscule. But the amount of deletions, you know what I'm saying? Just from a strategic standpoint, man, you are culling your own people, your own warriors, your own social class or whatever, and you're paving the way for anybody else to come and just move in on your territory. Like, if you were a strategist or whatever, you would not maim yourself before you go into battle. That's stupid.
Well, this is what I was saying before, and it was more of a joke, but it's like when you think about it, like a lot of folks aren't really sophisticated, and especially like in Black America and all that. And a lot of people just can't see the reality of that kind of thing. Like trying to talk to like your average Democrat voters and explain that reality to them, they'll just call you a mean person and then cut their mind off to the concept of being just slowly moved out and edged out and replaced. And it's not even like you're going to lose in some type of grand war. You just won't be producing enough of your kind of people that your kind of people will exist in prominent, secured positions going forward. It's like imagine your piece of the pie shrinking slightly every day over the next 30 years or whatever, the next 50 years. That's why people brought up that number. By 2050 Black America will be a confirmed locked underclass, and then what happens after that? Eventually, like, who knows? Like, it won't be a really significant Black population apparently left. It'll just be like small pockets. It'll probably be like the Amish or some shit.
And you earned that shit. I mean, you did the things over the time, right? You went to the clinics, to check to press the eject button, and you didn't form families and all that, so you get what you got. And so then it becomes the point of, all right, so this is the uncomfortable truth
You
that
know what?
what we have to do to move forward if we want to improve things. You either get down or lay down.
Amish isn't even the right word because Amish is like actually a thriving, self-contained community for the most part. The word I'm looking for is maybe like some kind of gypsy culture. Black America is moving into a gypsy culture.
Damn, man, that's crazy. And you know it's
That's what I
wild.
said
Like
before.
historically,
I said gypsies.
everybody hated the gypsies historically.
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah, there's gonna be
Well,
like
according to black
this
people, everybody hates black people.
already, right? But that's really what I see happening is you be forming this sort of like just generally unliked, locked in lower caste.
Yeah, but the
And
thing is that they
my
won't be the
opinion,
first. They won't be the first, and they won't be the last. Like this has happened before. Like gypsies are a prime example. Gypsies historically, the Romanian, if you look at their history, everywhere they go, they're pariahs. Eastern Europe, Central Europe, Western Europe, America, South America, everywhere they go, people are like to the point where they pass laws. In England, they passed anti-gypsy laws. But for certain reasons. They have tendencies that people don't like stealing copper from the public utility cables.
Yeah.
I mean, are Negroes any different? Well, the reprobates anyway.
Not really. Not
No,
really,
I don't
man.
think Negroes are going to steal copper from public wire.
Well, in South
I don't think
Africa,
it's
that's
that
actually a
bad.
big thing. It's actually a big thing in South Africa. You know,
No,
black
no,
folk in
I'm talking
America
about
not
black
really into
Americans. I'm
that
talking
type
about
of
black
shit.
Americans.
Yeah,
I'm talking about black
you just
Americans. I'm not talking
reminded me of
about
that though.
Africans.
But yeah, nah. But actually, I mean, copper theft is a big thing by itself. Don't get it twisted. Copper theft is a thing, bro. They be raiding these job sites. I mean, like some construction sites and stuff like that. You never know. There's money in all kind of places when you're broke and desperate.
Yeah, they had to
But
change. They had to change like policies on people stealing other people's Cadillac converters. Because it used to be
yeah,
basically an honor system, man. Like somebody brought one in, but man, they getting all these stolen ones, and you could tell somebody using sawzall to just chop somebody's joint off.
damn, that's crazy. That's how they do it. That's wild.
Yeah, man. I've seen videos, man. Cats like, wake up in the middle of the night hearing noises outside their house, and then confront the dude, like, be comfortable, like underneath their vehicle, man, getting ready to cut their joint off, man.
But yeah, I could see Black America probably be some type of like neo steampunk gypsy culture in the future. Can't
I
imagine
mean,
what it would look like.
I mean that's what that was the intention with the welfare, was to get us to this point because we were doing too we were uppity, we were getting uppity as the president said.
But here's the thing too, right? Well, if if we were getting up, and this is why that whole like party switch thing is so stupid, because if we were getting uppity, and then the solution to that is to get us on welfare, that means the people who walked us down that path, the Democrats and all that, were the ones who wanted us to lose in the first place, or they were the ones who said we don't like all this success and all this stuff going on, which is all that black folk talk about anyway. How like, we used to have Black Wall Street, this, that, and the third. And then the Democrats came along and basically slowly even kind of erased the idea or the possibility of recreating these kinds of things. That's why we question things like integration or whatever. Because I forget who I was watching. I forget, it was one of these guys from back in the Civil Rights Day, but he was trying to explain how like Black America didn't necessarily want like forced segregation per se. What they really just wanted was like, I don't know, something like free passage or whatever, just equality on that of application or something like that. But like this, I forget how I was explaining, but this idea that, we just lose quote black stuff for the sake of, integrating with everything else. It is something to consider. Like, was it a trade-off worth taking? Like I think we really do need to like reconsider a lot of the whole civil rights era. All the traditional black narratives kind of have to be thrown in question now, because it's like all that stuff is what led us to this point, and this point is clearly like standing on a cliff now.
Hey,
Yeah,
good luck with that one, Hood. Good luck, because most people, they cling to it almost in a religious fashion without actually being able to like rationally either talk or think about it. Hell, look at how Chad Jackson, right? Look at his reaction to like saying anything that's of the contrary of one of the beloved leaders. You know what I'm saying? Even though a bunch of stuff has come out and people will admit that, you know, my man was a philanderer, right? But they still hold him in high regard, even though they know some of the truth.
Because that indoctrination run deep.
Well, this is what I was saying earlier about like the power of overwhelming propaganda. You know, we really can't like there's nothing quite like it in terms of just, you know, human activity or whatever. It's something that's relatively modern, like propaganda, media, stuff like that's only 100 or so years old with Hollywood and all. Like however old the first like what movies and films or whatever. That's basically the beginning of modern like propaganda or whatever, and it does something to the population. It kind of constantly bombard them with stories and narratives and imagery, and tell these people that this is who you are, this is what you should be about, this is what your people are about. Like traditionally that comes from just your own native historical culture. But now I guess with like, you know, somebody's talking about Marxist in the chat and like all this indoctrination, that's essentially the process that's, you know, taken hold, where it's like they've created a blackness through like the civil rights era of struggle, and transmitting this idea that you're always been oppressed, not only by Bull Connor, but by all the Bull Connors throughout history or whatever. It's like you always have like your whole identity is the struggle. That's why they go back to the pyramids and say, you know, the we was Kang shit. Like it really does get deep, because I really start thinking about this whole black identity thing, and it starts to take me to these kind of wild places where like the whole like Black America used to be like a very Christian group, I would imagine. Like you could just say that they were very religious, and that religiosity has now turned into something like racial self idolatry. And so now we've created this whole Black identity around like being like you know, victimized and oppressed by the
No,
white
no,
man, and we have this whole struggle against the white man, and struggling against the white man is how we get to heaven ultimately.
no. What happened is that it's a fallacy of what's called verification, when the collective becomes personified with concreteness and anthropomorphized with actually having ability, which is not true. And two, it's Marxism. It's the same idea of turning an illusionary collective, which is like the proletariat, claiming that they all have a shared interest, which they don't, and then claiming they have some conflict with bourgeoisies. So instead of proletariat and bourgeoisie, now it's just black and white. So they want you to subsume the individual, which takes precedent over the collective, because there is no collective without individuals. So they want you to diminish and subsume your individuality into a collective identity that they created, that neo-Marxists and liberals created and foisted on black people. Just like they foisted the idea of being a proletariat or being a feminist on women. Women were not feminists. They created this concept of being a feminist and then pushed it onto women.
Hey,
You know what? You know what, Hood? From your observation, I think I can pinpoint it, because you mentioned that blacks were Christians, right? And a lot of the Marxists targeted black preachers to spread their message across the black community. And then once the Christian message got corrupted with Marxism, because in the Bible they have the Bible does have, if you slant it the right way, you can preach against being rich. When really it was just about greed, right? Like the whole eye of the needle thing is vastly misquoted and misunderstood amongst black Christians. You know,
well, they have to do that, man, to like paint it in a bad eye, because like the parable of the talents, or the parable about the Good Samaritan, if you actually look at that, Like the poor people ain't helping nobody because they can't. They can't afford to. Even if they wanted to, they can't. You know what I'm saying? You can want to in your heart, man, and make you feel bad you can't help this person. But if you don't have the means, guess what? You're gonna have to be selfish.
I get that, but the way I was going was it painted this narrative that the elites were just bad for some reason, right? Like the eye of the needle thing, right? They saying people think the way preachers are putting it is like the eye of a needle on an actual closed needle, right? The little the little loop on the needle where you can put the thread through and all that. They're saying that that's what they're talking about. Like a rich man chance of getting into heaven is like getting through the eye of a needle, a little space in the needle, whatever. When that's not really it. What it was is when you go to a city or a bridge between cities, you will unpack. They call it a needle, and you have to unpack your camel to get through the needle. You don't carry everything at once. You have to make trips, and that's what it's actually talking about. But it's that
Well,
kind of corruption of the verses that make it seem like being rich is somehow inherently evil, and
but
being
it's not just
poor and struggling is inherently benevolent.
yeah, but it's not just that. Marxism is a religion unto itself. And since it's a secular religion, which is kind of confusing to people because people think you need a deity to have a religion, but you don't. All you need is a good and evil, a concept of good and evil, eschaton, meaning a future revelation of a future world where things are reconciled, and spiritual or unseen forces. Marxism has all of that. The good and evil.
Socrates, you do have a deity or whatever. It's just not. It's just presented. It's presented in a different word.
Well, what I'm saying is that that I was pointing out there was a black Christianity, and it just got corrupted with Marxism. What seemed to be intersection philosophies within Marxism and Christianity kind of got mingled together. And now we're in a state where feminist Christian is a acceptable term.
Yeah, but like
Even though the Bible's heavily patriarchal.
Yeah, but it wasn't happenstance though. This was like subversion from the start. They knew what power the church had, so they had to infiltrate it. Same to this day. That's how you get like somebody with rainbows all behind them telling you that Jesus was trans, and it's like, come on, man.
Right, even that part, even with that community taking over the rainbow, which has a totally different symbol within the Christian faith.
Yeah, so they have to take the things. They have to take the things that you hold dear or whatever. Like Hood was saying, the other day about Star Wars, and they have to circumvent certain parts. They have to undermine other parts, and they have to undermine and change definitions because they have to twist it. Because they can't have you knowing what the actual history is. Like to your point, Enigma. How what do you call it? How they have to, introduce like non, cultural relevance to like terms, and like they don't want to tell you about the history of the term and why the term was about the needle or whatever, or even the Constitution. Because like, come on, let's not act like these cats didn't write extensively about these certain things. They wanted future people to be able to see their words and their thinking and their understanding of why they came about certain stuff.
Well, you know what I was just thinking about?
Go ahead.
Because we're talking about like religion, and in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to like the group as a whole, religion is your identity in a huge way. Like the religious story of your people is a part of your story too. And so when you get to the modern era where people are like a lot less religious, there's still that need for like that identity. And I think media has kind of filled in the gap in a lot of ways. So like a lot of our, projections of heroism, instead of like Hercules, and the Greek pantheon or whatever god stories were native to your people. Like we literally have Thor from the mythology as a comic book figure, right? Kind of drawing on that concept, bringing some connectivity from an old idea of like religious stories as your identity to like nowadays, Thor is just like a Hollywood symbol for like masculine heroism, right? And so now it's like Hollywood is trying to give us a new identity, and not just Hollywood too, but there's just this whole liberal artistic culture. Maybe it's all part of the same Marxist ball, but Hollywood is kind of trying to like become the modern myth makers and storytellers with a lot of media and give us our identity. And so that's what I was getting at also by saying how they have to like pervert our sort of like traditional archetypes or whatever, because Hollywood always has like stepped in for that role to give us sort of figures of aspiration, figures to look up to. And then like we had certain like Batman is one of my favorite is my favorite comic book character really. And so like he hasn't really been corrupted totally yet. I'd hate to see the day, but like that's the idea, is to take these like sort of archetypes that you look to, because we don't all like go to church and worship the goodness of Jesus anymore, like we might have done 200 years ago or 150 years ago or something like that. But like almost every young boy knows, you know, Batman and Spider-Man and Superman. And so it's like, especially for boys, it's a very powerful thing to now kind of like rewrite the identity of masculinity, much like we're talking about where they rewrite the identity of what it means to be black. Like this, just constantly rewriting the identity of what a thing is for this Marxist purpose.
Yeah, but the purpose is to make you a materialist collectivist. Once you're, it's like alphaism. You know what alphaism is? Hello? You know what
in regards to that, man, he's one PD up an accusation away from being completely left liberalized.
I said alphaism.
Because he's a stepdad for like a lot of kids.
EFILISM. It's like life backwards. Alphaism.
No, I've never heard of that at all.
Okay, so alphaism is a concept that existence is wrong and evil, and the best thing for the world is for life not to exist, because life is suffering. And Karl Marx was an alphaist. He had a play called Illuminum, which is Emmanuel spelled backwards, where the devil was a character, where the whole point is to destroy all life. And I really believe that communism is a means of wanting to destroy all life, because they think life is a problem.
No, that's easy enough to understand though, because I've always said, and I joke about it the way I do, but it's like the left is obviously searching for the anti-life equation, like Darkseid in the comic books. Like they are looking for the opposite of life. They try to solve the problem of life itself. And that's why they think they can endlessly like rewrite mankind and rewrite the nature of this and that. Because they're really trying to like they come from an ultimately nihilistic place where like life itself is wrong. If you really get down to the heart of the philosophy, like this is why like you know the abortion thing is so pushed, or like the idea of all this non-productive sexual behavior is pushed, right? Because ultimately it's the opposite of life making. Even the idea of life itself is beauty, right? So they have nature is beauty. What do they create in response to that? Brutalism. You know, this idea of architecture, instead of making beautiful architecture that kind of is like man's testament to God and nature, it's just, you know, a brutal assault on reality. That's why they have all these like concrete block structures as what brutalism actually is in terms of architecture, right? Like they express it in all these different ways, but ultimately it stems from that basic point of just nihilism. Again, it's the anti-life equation being played out.
It goes further than nihilism, because nihilism is the belief that life has no meaning, right? They take it further. They say, oh, life does have a meaning, and that meaning is suffering, or that life shouldn't exist because it comes to suffering. They actually believe that. And this is why, if you understand they believe that, and they enlarge the definition of suffering, not just physical suffering, but emotional suffering, psychological suffering. Any suffering is an imposition. Thus, life itself becomes an imposition. Thus, they think life needs to be eradicated. And it's called anti-natalism. That's what they don't want kids. They don't want people to be born. They being born is an assault on your life. It's a bad experience. Why? Because they're narcissists. They take their own personal resentments or their own personal issues with life, and they projected onto the world. So since they have whatever situation, maybe they're ugly, maybe they didn't have a good life, or maybe bad things happen to them from that whatever reason, they feel slighted. They take it out like a teen angst. They take it out on the entire world. So the whole world must suffer because of their own personal sufferings. And that's what is the basis of modern progressivism. That's why if you hear them talk, they're really against the idea that they believe life has robbed them of something. Whether it's being beautiful, being rich, being a white male, whatever thing they believe. And they're thus putting an indictment on life itself because of this quote unquote theft of what they think they've been robbed of. This is why they push medical assisted suicide. They think it's actually better to die. If you ask any of them, is it better to not be born or to die if you have a life of misery? They will all say yes. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's crazy that in Canada they actually do have. So I think they have more medical suicides than they have probably like homicides or some shit like that. Like the number is crazy, I think.
But think about it from their perspective. This is why it's very dangerous because George Orwell warned us how they play around with words. So how people get seduced into Marxism is they use your own philosophy, your own worldview against you. Because they don't have a worldview really, except nihilism or altruism. Their worldview is actually nothing should exist. They're not going to tell you that. If they tell you that, you'll be like, what's wrong with you? So they use your worldview against you, which I don't understand why people fall for. They'll use your morality against you. They'll say things like, hey, don't you think that people should live a life that is bountiful and has options and willingness to grow? And you'll say, of course, yeah, that makes sense. So if a person doesn't have the ability to have that, would you want to go through the misery of having to fight and strive? And you say, well, that can be prevented. I guess that's how we have abortion. And I'm like, wait, hold on. By that logic, there should be no black people in America because the women should have abortions.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, in a lot of ways, like, because we're kind of getting deep into the philosophical weeds here, but in a lot of ways, this is kind of how I've sort of like stumbled into an appreciation for like the Christian faith in particular. And again, like I said, I don't typically like, I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't get into biblical arguments and shit. But I realize that the Christian faith in a lot of ways has sort of embodied what seems like basic philosophical concepts, like the idea of struggle, right? Like life itself is struggle. Like how can you have life without struggle, which is sort of like what you're getting at with this. I forgot how you phrased it, forgot to phrase it, but like this idea that because there is struggle in life, life does not deserve to exist. Well, in Christianity, it's a religion that literally gives you a deity whose basis is struggle, and then overcoming that struggle even in death. And like it gives you something to kind of like cope with the very concept that life, there is just struggle in life. And that's why it's a powerful thing, I guess, and especially like with all the other accompanying philosophies to it. But again, this is why I kind of realized like there is a very anti Christian spirit to a lot of what you're talking about. Like in a lot of just opaque ways that really are tearing at the heart of Christianity. But then when you start to look closer, there's more logic to the Christian side of the argument than there is to the more nihilistic side of it.
Well, the nihilistic side is just, this is the thing about them. So we call critical analysis, right? Critical theory. It's easy to criticize. It's easy for me to go and point out the imperfections in anything because nothing is perfect. But really, what's the value of that? Because they don't give you an alternative. Everything is just wrong. Everything is bad. Everything has an issue. And it's really just a very miserable existence. And then two, Western history, even from the Greeks to the Romans, this is why I think Christianity is able to merge with Western tradition because they philosophically have the same belief system. The idea of a hero in Greek mythology is a person who overcomes to become great. You're not a hero if you don't overcome something. Hercules is a hero because he overcome the 12 labors to do something great. Heroism comes to suffering. All heroes suffer. That's what makes them heroic. That they're able to bear the suffering and come out better and stronger or whatever on the other side. Christianity says the same thing. They say you have to bear your cross. The cross is different for different people, but you have to bear it. And that is actually what gives meaning to life. From the mythological architecture of Greek or Roman mythology, what makes a hero or makes a story worthwhile is the ordeal you go through the story. It's like Lord of the Rings. What makes Lord of the Rings worthwhile, the story, is what they go through in order to fulfill the quest of destroying the ring and Mount Doom.
Like, what does it matter? What does it matter him throwing the ring into the fire without watching the process to him? He discovers the ring, he learns the power of the ring, the secret. Like, you have to kind of get through all of that to understand why him throwing the ring into the fire matters at all.
Correct. And that's why a lot of leftists are also miserable, because there's no point to their existence because they try to avoid struggle. When struggle gives, like working out, I'm big into working out. And if anyone who's big into working out, you'll probably ask them, like, why do you care? Because it's that progress that makes the conclusion worthwhile. When you become a big dude or you're a muscular dude or whatever goals you have, it's what you have to do to obtain that makes it worthwhile. Like, you remember not being able to lift up 135 and now you're benching 315. And it's like that 315. Yeah, go ahead.
No, not now. We're getting into more, philosophy thing. I made this argument last night on the panel, and there's, a lot of debate to be had. I'm not going to claim, total victory on it, but I was saying that there is actually a slight correlation between physical beauty and IQ. And like, think about it like this, right? Especially among men too. Like, we when you look at a guy who's like worked out or whatever, you automatically know that he's like sacrificed certain things. He put himself through certain things to gain a certain thing, and it becomes like an admirable goal to achieve, right? And so understanding that, knowing what that is, that takes a level of IQ, and so some of these things start to feed into each other, and in terms of like the mating dynamics or whatever. But I think also, in terms of like what the physical person is, it's like a different parallel thing. But I just started to notice that, like, among people who are just higher IQ, they don't tend to look completely slovenly. They tend to maintain a certain level of physical appearance, like understanding like beauty and projecting beauty, the desire to project beauty. I think there's a level of IQ that goes into that. Like, you do not even understand why you should project beauty without a level of IQ. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I get it.
They appear orderly.
Appearing orderly. Orderliness is godliness.
Absolutely. That's why if I were to teach guys how to pick up women, I say the reason why you get in shape is not because of women, it's because you need self-mastery. And if you can't master yourself, how can you master anything outside of yourself?
It's an outward projection of inward quality. So you're projecting that to the world because you understand that if I project this to the world, I show the world, my value or whatever, and how I show up in it, and how they need to possibly respect me too. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you were Hood. Let me throw this back real quick. You're talking about Mythos, right, in Hollywood. And the show For All Mankind is on Apple TV, but it is elite propaganda. I mean, elite. And I've had
I've never watched that. What's it really about? Just quick, like, synopsis, basically.
It is a alt history of the space race. All right, so it starts in the 60s. So there's a lot of opportunity for counterculture and retconning of society and figures at NASA. So,
Bro, somebody actually just posted a link to one of the videos, and I pulled it up. It's in my history somewhere. And I have to go back and review this live because you just reminded me. The name of the show has to be lit. The people on Twitter say this, so I didn't come up with this on my own. But you can just make up Black history. And that's effectively like what's happened in media. And so there was a channel that did a review of what was that girl movie about NASA, the Black women of NASA. Like, they totally they totally lied about like a lot of those like little righteous Black power moments of like standing up for women and Black people and all that, like a whole scene with the ladies' room. So there was this one channel, he actually went through it like bit by bit and did like the movie display of it, and then the actual historical reality of it was saying like this just could have not even happened because of such and such and such. And Hollywood just totally threw that in there to give you the impression that even way back then it was all this struggle and all this racism, when in fact they had long been relatively desegregated and they weren't even doing such and such things anymore. It was like, see, this is how Hollywood is now mythologizing your black identity to give you this false impression of what things used to be. This is why I really am deeply suspicious of like the traditional black narrative, because I realize you actually can just make up black history, and that's actually fucked up.
But that's part of what George Orwell explains in 1984, that Marxists are going to make things up because it's not about reality, it's about the narrative. I feel sorry for black people because I discount anything they say regarding black people because they're Marxists. Any time a Marxist speaks, I assume they're lying. Because they lie all the time. They'll make stuff up. You do history, you start realizing so many things you were told in public school were lies. Prime example. During the civil rights.
But it's not about the narrative. It's about the results. The narrative provides, you said, results. The narrative is just a means to the end because all they care about is the result.
Exactly. Like during the civil rights movement, a lot of people don't know. They don't know who A.G. Gaston is. They don't know who Joseph T. Jackson is. They don't know who these people are. A.G. Gaston financed the entire civil rights movement. But of course, we don't know who he is. Why? Oh, because he was the richest black man in America who came from slavery to become a wealthy man, and was so wealthy that he was able to single-handedly finance the civil rights movement. Why do we talk about him? We don't want to talk about the idea of a man being self-started, self-made, becoming rich, and opposing society. That's not the message they want to push. The message is you have to march and then hope the government changes things. Also, Joseph H. Jackson, he was the leader of the Southern Baptist Conference. Martin Luther King created his own separate progressive Baptist conference because when he tried to run for president in the Southern Baptist Conference, they didn't vote for him. They considered, most black people at that time considered Martin Luther King a rebel rouser, ridiculous, and they didn't support him. Let them tell you now, he was loved by the black community and embraced by everybody. Joseph A. Jackson was opposed to Martin Luther King and that movement because he said that black people should do for themselves. They should not rely on white people or anyone to.
And look, now when you learn about these figures in like public education, just common knowledge now, you're not going to hear that there was actually like a battle for the spirit of black people. You're going to hear that black people were already one-minded about these things. And so you're going to be given now an identity of blackness that is in fact false, and it just doesn't match the actual historical record, which is back to what I said before, is you can just make up black history.
Well, dude, that's what we have today.
Right.
That is the exact situation we have today. Because the black upper class doesn't exist, competent black people don't exist, right? The idea of civil rights is like, black people didn't go anywhere but stay in a black neighborhood. There was no black society outside of oppression, right? They started Meharry Medical College started in like 1800s.
Right.
Dental school started in the 1800s. I mean,
or Dunbar High School, Dunbar High School in DC.
Correct.
You know what I saw pictures of recently? Black people at like debutante balls. How come most black folks don't even know that's a thing, or used to be a thing? I don't know how much they still do that.
Because
it's very niche. But to your point, the retconning of black culture eliminates all that, right? It's basically Plymouth Rock, slavery, civil rights movement.
Correct. And the struggle. Everything has to be the struggle to the point where, and it's another thing that they do, which I'm totally against. They don't want you to individuate. They don't want you to become an individual. If as a black person, you start to cultivate individual eccentricities or peculiarities or inclinations, they're against that. Like you said, if I want to forage in the woods and collect mushrooms, they're against that. Why? Because it's being an individual and not joining the collective. The collective is a struggle. The collective is a revolution. Anything that distracts from that is opposition. That's why they don't want you being religious. They don't want you being whitewashed. They don't want you doing anything except becoming a political drone. This is why they want critical race theory. What is critical race theory there? Is it to give you a fair, balanced view of history, of racism and stuff like that? No, it's to make you resentful, have a gripe, and make you believe that the only point of life is to oppose white people, white supremacy, and join revolution.
Yeah, that's your identity. But
That's your
guys, I
identity, who
think
you
we're
are.
gonna. I gotta wrap this up here. We've been at this for a little while. I'm gonna wind this one down. I gotta go here. But I appreciate you guys coming up, man. Thank you for kind of holding the court with me today. We kind of just had a long ass panel. I haven't had just a long panel show like this in almost forever. So I thank you guys for coming up and holding the floor with me for a while. And I don't know, probably later on tonight I might come back with another show. Who knows what I'm gonna do? But guys, I thank you so much. We're gonna wrap this one up, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys later. Have a great day, y'all.
Aspiring to be patriarchs like what white men have, that isn't freedom. That isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help black people.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.